Freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. And here on What on Earth is Happening, we are ending slavery one mind at a time. Welcome, one and all. Thank you for tuning in. Today is Sunday, February 13th, 2022. We are going to be continuing our discussion on shadow work today. That's the topic of today's show. The psychological fear factors that stop us from ever beginning, part 2. And today we'll be wrapping up this topic. Again, this is part of a series on shadow work. I'll be doing a series of shows on this topic, not back to back, but from time to time. I'm also going to be doing a series of shows on psyops, where I cover different psyops that are have been taking place in the past and are still ongoing. And I'll be doing a series on satanic mindset in different institutions and aspects of our culture and society, and how these people who are members of these institutions don't even necessarily know that they are in a satanic mindset or what that even means. So look for shows on these topics and many others coming up in the near future here on What on Earth is Happening. Again, we are live every Sunday from January through June. In the second half of the year, I teach the How to Become the True Media seminar and dedicate my time and effort to that. So we're on a 6-month on, 6-month off schedule right now. So let's jump over. Before I even jump over to my slides, let me say that What on Earth is Happening is a cumulative series of work and should not be watched or listened to out of order. So if you are a new listener to the show, show number 242 is not where you should begin. You should go back to my website, to the podcast section, click the podcast tab on What on Earth is Happening, and you should listen in order from number 1 and only progress one podcast at a time. Don't skip around, because each subsequent podcast has prerequisite material that is covered in the podcast before. So it is not advised to skip around or listen or watch out of order. Watch and listen in order at your own pace, and then you will understand what we are talking about here on What on Earth is Happening. If you don't do that, you're probably not going to get the context that all these things are framed in, and you're going to be lost. So keep that in mind. The show, each What on Earth is Happening episode does not stand alone on its own. They are not self-contained episodes. That needs to be very clearly understood, especially by new listeners, that this is a cumulative information show, and later episodes rely on information covered in earlier episodes. So be aware of that. So let's go over to my slides for today. This show is 242. Again, it's entitled Shadow Work, Exposing the Psychological Fear Factors That Stop Us from Beginning, Part 2. We're also going to be taking calls right after I'm finished my slideshow. So you can get in the queue to have your call taken on the What on Earth is Happening Discord server. Go to whatonearthishappening.com/Discord or whatonearthishappening.com/show and click the connect button in the Discord widget on the show page. So thank you to Will Keller for the great artwork. He's been doing a really great job providing these podcast art pieces. So thank you. And we're going to really get deep into shadow work and what it is and how to do it today. The practical techniques of shadow work is what I endeavor to show people, at least one practical technique. There are countless. So that's going to be coming up in just a few moments. A few quick housekeeping announcements. Of course, we are on a new streamlined format. I call it What on Earth is Happening 3.0. We're on a 6-month on, 6-month off schedule, as I said earlier. So we're live every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern U.S. time from January through June. And I'm running solo. That means I am self-producing the show without a crew. I've streamlined the show format and the software to the point where I'm pretty much functionally able to do this. We've had some technical hiccups, of course, and looks like we've ironed most of those out. And hopefully things will continue to go smoothly in that regard. Last week, I announced that since I was banned from Patreon, I started a Subscribestar page. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell people that I may have to back out of Subscribestar. I don't know whether this is going to work out or not. I know some people already, basically signed up and subscribed. I wouldn't say cancel just yet, but I may not be taking the Subscribestar money for the month because those donations, I may not take them because Subscribestar, after signing up and approving me, then hits you with that they want tax filings done. And of course, I'm not going to do that. So I may have to simply cancel my Subscribestar account. I don't know of any good recurring subscription account, even though I don't really do subscription-based model here. It would just be a recurring donation. I don't have any good recurring donation websites in mind, services that provide that, and don't have stringent requirements when it comes to what they're going to report or try to tax you on. So of course I'm not going to do that. And, I may just have to cancel Subscribestar as a result. And that's why I said earlier on in the, first couple of podcasts back, this operation is severely hurt by having PayPal and Patreon canceled on me, being banned from those platforms. I'm now banned from 4 platforms. I'm banned from PayPal, Patreon, Vimeo, and Venmo, which is a subsidiary of PayPal. So I'm banned from PayPal and Venmo for donations. I'm banned from Patreon for donations, and I'm banned as a video platform from Vimeo. I never thought that these would be the platforms that I'd be banned from first. I thought the more draconian platforms like YouTube and Twitter would ban me far faster than these. And what this whole garbage psyop called COVID-19 has actually done is it has really shown who people really are deep down inside, in their soul and in their heart. In their heart of hearts, it shows you who they really are and what side they really truly stand on and who they stand with. And, so I want to announce to people who are interested in the Subscribestar platform and already even possibly signed up to support me there. I don't know whether this platform is going to work out or not. Let's just take it as it comes and see what happens. But I'll probably have an announcement either way sometime next week, whether I'll be staying on that platform or abandoning it. The One Great Work Network, of course, is one of the biggest projects I ever have undertaken in my career as a public figure, a public speaker, a broadcaster, etc. And you can find it at onegreatworknetwork.com. We're going to be onboarding new people. I know I've been saying this over the few weeks. I've been trying to make time to do it, and I will. probably do a few all at once in the upcoming days. I want to say that I will be doing pretty good and interesting updates to my network here at my home office because I want to basically add some faster networking equipment. So One Great Work Network may be down for a couple of hours tomorrow while I upgrade my home LAN with even better equipment. Thank you to the people who donated equipment from the donations page of What on Earth is Happening. You make improvements to what I do here possible. You guys know who you are. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the wonderful, generous donations you've given me over the years. So thank you. It's much appreciated, and it really makes a difference, and it helps here. So check out One Great Work Network, and please support the content creators on the network. The How to Become the True Media seminar for 2022 is an extensive, intensive online technological skill sharing seminar hosted by myself. And this year we're going to be hosting on the Telegram platform. Telegram looks like it's going to work nicely for How to Become the True Media. And we're going to be conducting the How to Become the True Media seminar every Wednesday this year. I did it Tuesday, year one. I did it Thursday, year two. We're going to move to Wednesday this year and see how that day works out in the middle of the week. We'll be starting July 13th and progressing each week, a 3-hour class from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. until December 14th, 2022. That's a total of 23 class sessions in the entire seminar. There is limited space in the seminar. I will cap it when we hit a certain number. And enrollment will begin on Friday, April 1st, the first day of April 2022. You will be able to begin enrolling in the How to Become the True Media seminar. As I said in previous weeks, I'm also going to open up enrollment in the seminar via check or money order, which I hadn't done previously. It was digital donations only, but donations via check or money order. When enrollment opens, I will be accepting and enrolling people that way to make up for the ways that I have not been able to take donations since being banned from PayPal and Patreon. The What on Earth is Happening IPFS project is off to a great start. We successfully got the first IPFS node up and on the network this week. Thank you so much to our first person who began the project. I'm not sure whether the individual wants me to say their name on air, so I won't for now, but thank you for taking part in the IPFS project and bearing with the things that we had to do technologically to get this set up on the network. I think it went very smoothly. The node seems to be working well, and we're going to start making a page of links to IPFS nodes where people can get my content and mirror it if they wish. So the IPFS project is part of Web 3.0, which is distributed and uncensorable. So if you're interested in helping to distribute my work so that it can never be censored on the IPFS network, you can go to whatonearthishappening.com/IPFS, fill in the form. You could download the PDF document with preliminary instructions. I'm going to slightly modify those instructions this week to include one other small piece of equipment that I think should be purchased. Do not purchase any equipment, again, unless you speak to me directly after I accept you into the What on Earth is Happening IPFS project. Then we can move forward with equipment purchase and setup of the node. So there are stringent technological requirements. You have to have a new mini PC, which is outlined in the document. You have to have a 200 megabit per second or greater internet connection in the upstream or upload direction. If you do not have that, you're not qualified up front to host an IPFS node for What on Earth is Happening material. Again, you could use IPFS on your own. You don't need any help from me. But if you're going to be a member of the What on Earth is Happening IPFS project, then you do need my approval as far as whether you meet the technological requirements. And then I will actually be setting up the node to my specifications. So that has to be clearly understood. You can read the PDF document instructions, preliminary, setup instructions, etc. If you want more information on that, once again, go to whatonearthishappening.com/IPFS. But so far, we're off to a pretty good and a pretty smooth start with the IPFS project. I'm definitely happy with the progress. My goal is to get at least maybe one more node a month set up. If we can do that, I'll be happy. If we get 10 to 12 nodes set up by the end of the year, I'm absolutely, totally pleased with the progress of this project. And if we continue at that pace, that'll be wonderful. So, the Freedom Under Natural Law Conference has been going on this weekend. Let me tell you something. I'm highly impressed. I watched all day yesterday. Every presenter was phenomenal. I'm probably going to invite some new people as a result of watching them, give their presentations on this conference to come onto the One Great Work Network. Everybody did a phenomenal job. I believe it's still ongoing right now. I think they're going to be wrapping up in probably a few hours. So freedomundernaturallaw.com is the website. We are simulcasting it right now on the, we were until my show went live on the One Great Work Network. And please support these guys. What a phenomenal job they have done. This is what doing the great work is all about. And the speakers were fantastic, and the organizers did their job excellently, I have to say. So great job, guys, on Freedom Under Natural Law. I hope there are many more to come in the future. So support these guys. The work that they're doing is phenomenal, and it's an example to others on how to go about doing the one great work. I can't really give higher praises for this great conference. So it's wrapping up today. Hopefully you caught it. There will be obviously archives made. Check their website, Freedom Under Natural Law, for more information when they put video archives up. So we will be taking calls this week on What on Earth is Happening. I'll be giving a short slide presentation and wrapping up this topic on shadow work. And then we'll be going to your calls to talk about shadow work. And maybe what I want to set as a parameter for the call-ins is we talk about what either led you to start doing the one great work or the factors that you feel are still holding you back. So that's what I really want to dig into today. So if you're not comfortable talking about that, maybe let's reserve this call session for people who are and want to talk about those psychological dynamics. And if you haven't begun doing things publicly, I'm not going to berate you on the air. Just let me say that up front, okay? We're going to just simply talk about what you feel is holding you back from coming out, coming forward publicly and doing that type of work. And we'll examine things about that and talk about, how valid they are, whether, you are believing something that isn't really true about yourself, because that's what shadow work is all about. It's about confrontation with elements of the self that are somewhat detrimental to your progressing in consciousness and in freedom and taking part in the work to accomplish those goals. So, again, this could be difficult, yes, but I promise, I give you my word, I will not berate people on the air. We will simply have a discussion regarding your own personal shadow work, what you did to either lead you to overcome your psychological fear factors and start doing the work, or which of them are still present as a barrier and holding you back from beginning that type of work. So if you're interested in calling in on those topics, we do our call-ins on Discord, whatonearthishappening.com/Discord or whatonearthishappening.com/show, and click the connect button on the Discord widget on the show page to join us on the Discord server. Now, before I continue, I'm going to start off my slides today with a quote. Sometimes I'll, throw a great quote in. This quote was actually emailed to me by a viewer of the show who thanked me for my anger last week and said it's actually encouraging for me to hear that kind of passion, and it's a motivation for me. And some people say it's too much. And I said at the beginning of this season of What on Earth is Happening, I was going to try to curb extreme anger. Certain things do still set me off. And it's generally about when people want to complain and haven't done work of their own and or do not understand what is required technologically to do something because they're so technologically illiterate, yet they have an opinion on it, right? It's maddening to me, okay? And I sometimes go even overboard with the rage, right? So I'm going to try to curb it back as I promised I would at the beginning of this season of What on Earth is Happening 3.0, not year 3. You know, I've been doing this for many more years than that, but the third incarnation of the show in its format, I would say. And I did say I was going to try to, because at the end of version 2.0 of What on Earth is Happening, the rage was flowing pretty thick. So I'm going to attempt to curb it a bit, not saying that I'll never, ever have a blow up or never get angry on the air, just saying I'm going to attempt to temper it a bit. But I want people to understand it's perfectly valid and justifiable anger, because imagine if you're one of the people that has dedicated your entire lives to a goal, dedicated your entire life to a mission. And then people who haven't done one spit to contribute to that mission claim to have an opinion about how you're doing it. This is like somebody, who's never driven a car in their lives, going up to the person who's won the most NASCAR races and is an absolute master race car driver and complaining about how they drive their car when they know absolutely zero about the craft, And that's what I'm trying to say. I sort of want to repeat this almost every episode. Maybe I'll repeat it every single episode. Like I repeat, this is a cumulative show. Does it waste time? Yes, it does. Do people listen? No, they don't. They still want to listen out of order. They still want to bring me whatever complaints and or suggestions they have. I want to repeat this over and over and over and over and over again until you get sick of fucking hearing it. I am not interested in your suggestions. This is my show alone, and no one has any other say over what I do here. The end. I don't care whether you don't like it. If you don't like it, shut it off. You're not required to listen to me. You're not required to watch this broadcast. And I'm going to say it very matter-of-factly to your face. If you don't like something I say, if you get offended too easily, if you have an opinion about what I'm doing here, I don't care. I'm uninterested in those things. Do you understand, morons out there who insist that you're going to give me a suggestion and I'm somehow going to follow it? I'm going to do things my own way. I'm not interested in your suggestions. I don't want even constructive criticism from people who have done squat. Okay? Do you grasp this? I will accept some polite, constructive criticism from people who I consider to be my peers, who are my equals in the quality and amount of work that they have put out publicly to the world, and only those individuals. So if Jordan Maxwell wanted to email me and give me a suggestion on what he thinks I was doing well or not doing so well, I would probably take that under advisement from somebody like Jordan Maxwell. But Jordan doesn't do things like that. You know why? He does his own thing. He does his own work because he's his own person. He's his own man. So he's not looking at what I'm doing and going, I'm going to go and tell Mark how he should do what he should do. You sound like you hit yourself in the head with a fucking hammer too many fucking times. This is how dumb you sound when you do this. First of all, do you think I am going to other people who are actually doing things and saying to them, you know what? All these years you've been doing this, I think you should do it my way. I think you should do it this way. I don't like that you're doing this or that or the other thing. Who am I to go and tell them? The answer is shut the fuck up. I'm not interested in what you have to say about my work. All I'm interested in is, are you doing anything? What the fuck are you doing? See, that's what shadow work is. Shadow work is shutting the fuck up and asking yourself, what the fuck have I done? If I have to give an overarching personal definition of shadow work, I'm going to give a working definition of shadow work on the next couple slides. But if I have to give a personal definition of what shadow work ultimately is, it's shut the fuck up, stop the mind chatter, yap, mouth all day. Shut it up. Force it to shut up, first and foremost. Secondly, stop lying to yourself about how effective and what you're doing is, what you think you're doing and how effective it is. Stop lying to yourself about the excuses that you've been making to yourself about what you're doing and how you're contributing, or why you're not doing anything and why you're not contributing to the great work. Okay? So it's shut the fuck up, stop making excuses, and listen. And you're not listening to me. You're listening to the voice of creation that is already everywhere around us, but it doesn't raise its voice like Mark Passio does. Mark Passio raises his voice. Creation doesn't raise its voice because it is that which is for all eternity and set all the laws of nature into effect. So what the fuck does it has to raise its voice for? Okay? I'm raising my voice to try to get through to hard-headed fucking knuckleheads that don't want to understand a voice of wisdom in the world. Nature doesn't even do that because it's not a personal force. It's a detached natural force that says, if you want to burn your own house down, go right ahead and burn it down. And then you'll learn the lesson of why not to burn your own house down. But if you want to do that, have it. Have all you want in spades. You're allowed to have all the suffering you ever can handle and want. You're allowed. What do you think's going on right now in the world? We can build anything we want. And we're choosing to build a torture chamber. We're not even building a prison here on Earth. Forget prison planet. Forget building the prison or the jail cell. We're building the torture chamber. We're saying to creation, please break us at the rack, draw and quarter us, put our heads in the spike cage, torture us with fire. That's what humanity is really saying. That's how wicked and crazy and insane and retarded humanity is. That's essentially what we're saying to creation. What shadow work does is it shows you how to get all the chatter out of your mind and listen to the voice of creation, which is telling you what you must and need to be doing for your optimum benefit. But if you don't want to do that, creation says you may have all the suffering you wish to have forever, for all eternity, in a torture chamber. If that's what you want for yourself, if that's your best vision of what you deserve and what you should have for yourself, by all means have it. Shadow work is the psychological work that attempts to take you out of the creation of your own torture chamber, ultimately. So let's move into some of the slides for today. And as I said, I'm going to be beginning with a quote about anger that a viewer sent me. So here we go. Thomas Aquinas, the Christian philosopher, said, "He who is not angry when there is just cause for anger is immoral." Why? Because anger looks to the good of justice. And if you can live amid injustice without anger, you are immoral as well as unjust. Fabulous quote, fantastic quote. Couldn't have said it any better. And it says it all. This is the source and reason for my displays of anger. And I call it the sacred gift of anger. We're going to do an extended presentation of the sacred gift of anger on the air. Extended presentation on it. We're going to do an extended presentation on fear of sacrifice. These are all shows coming up this season. Okay? Psyops, we're going to be getting into. We're going to be getting into satanic mindsets in different professions and institutions. And we're going to get into what is the role of fear what is the role of anger? What fear factors are holding us back from putting forward the work and the sacrifices that we have to put forward? This show is actually a part of that. You could call this an addendum to Fear of Sacrifice and the Freedom Movement presentation that I recently gave, which, by the way, it'll probably be going out for free next month, maybe around mid next month, around this time. Maybe I'll hold it until the spring equinox. I'll release it on, how about this? I'll release it on March 19th, okay? The date that is the beginning of the season of sacrifice, and the date that I was, basically given the commission of priest in the Church of Satan back when I was a Satanist. So March 19th, I'll release Fear of Sacrifice publicly for free. But I want to read this quote again because of how powerful it is. Thomas Aquinas, Christian theologian and philosopher, said, he who is not angry when there is just cause for anger is immoral. Why? Because anger looks to the good of justice. Meaning that if you feel righteous anger, it is because you are using justice as a model. You are using natural law as a model and seeing the good that represents in creation and in the universe, that it is the role model of all good that can come out, that can express itself in the universe. And if there is injustice taking place that is holding back the manifestation in our lives, the outcome in our lives of justice, then you are, and you're not angry about that, then that makes you an immoral person. And that's true. This is absolutely correct. When I see people who can't get angry about what is happening, they can get angry over losing money. They can get angry about the outcome of a football game, like many people will today. Okay? A child's fucking game. And that's what they're worried about. That's what they think has any bearing over anything in their lives. And that's what they're focusing their attention on. And yeah, there'll be satanic symbolism and rituals at halftime. I get it, of course. But, this should be like, yeah, and what are you going to do about it? Sit there continuing to complain? Is that really going to accomplish anything? Or are you going to change who you are and then help other people to change who they are so this shit ends? Continuing with the quote, why is a person immoral if they don't get angry about injustice? Aquinas goes on to say, because anger looks to the good of justice. And if you can live amid injustice without anger, you are immoral as well as unjust. It means you're not serving justice. You're not serving natural law. And because you don't get angry about those things, that part of your heart, that part of your soul has already been ripped away. You've already been disconnected from that aspect of the true self. And I know tons and tons and tons and tons of people like this. They're eternally calm people. They never get stirred or angry or passionate. And when I think about them from a soul perspective, I know that deep down in the psyche, deep down in the heart, deep down in the soul, they're fucking broken. Bad. Real bad. And all I have to say to people like that if you can't feel like that, if you don't really have that kind of passion and heart, and you can't feel it in your balls to bones, as the expression goes, you should ask yourself the question, when were you completely spiritually broken? And I mean broken like they break a horse or a mule, putting the yoke over its neck. That's how I mean broken. I mean, you were broken as in you were turned into a fucking slave. Literally. If you can't feel things that deeply and that hard, you don't care enough. That's why you're not doing what you actually need to be doing. You're not stirred by injustice in the heart deeply enough. Some may just be a little tiny bit, but it's not the same as I'm going to make this my passion. I'm going to make this my mission. I'm going to make this my life. It's not the same. You know, I go back to talking often about movie allegories because I think they're a great modern cultural reference for this type of material and helping us to understand these psychological aspects of ourself. And I remember the movie Achilles, the Greek demigod Achilles. And he's talking before a battle. Before he goes off into battle, he was known as one of the greatest Greek warriors. And before he goes off into battle, he is talking to a child, an adolescent, preteen, somebody like that, a boy like that. And the boy is saying, "Aren't you afraid?" And he says, "No, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to do what I know to be the right thing to do." And he says, "Well, if I was going to go off and fight that army, I'd be afraid." And then Achilles looks at him and just says to him directly, right to the child's face, "That's why no one will ever remember your name." And he's not saying this for egoic purposes. He's not saying I need my name remembered for ego-based reasons. That's not what he means. He means what's going to make you a great person. And I don't mean great like, "Oh, look at me, how wonderful I am. I could shoot 3-pointers endlessly from half court." I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what's going to make you a person known that in the face of adversity and strife, you still did the right thing. That's what he means by a great man. In biblical Old Testament terms, these were called the men of renown. And it's not a sexist term, just men. It means the people of renown, those who did great deeds when it was required of them to do those great deeds. And, that's exactly the dynamic that we're talking about here. Do you want to be an average person who didn't really do anything great with their lives? Do you want to be somebody who's just mediocre? Or do you want to do great things? Do you want to do things that are going to go beyond political action, go beyond charity, go beyond financial action, and go to the place that really changes the world? And that is changing things from a psychological and spiritual level. That's the only thing that does ever change the world, ultimately, long term. Yes, there could be battles and wars and revolutions, and yes, they do change the world, okay? But I'm talking about long-term permanent change that can't easily be usurped or misdirected or, guided in a different direction years down the line. This is what happens, with just about every movement. It gets taken over from the inside and then it gets directed to, places that it was never intended to go. So let's move on here. And this is the background of the title card for the show for today. And I think it does a great job expressing what shadow work really is. It's not fun. This person doesn't look like they're having fun because they're not. They're in deep personal introspection. This is what most people never want to do. They never want to self-examine. Great philosophers have said a life that has not been deeply examined is not worth living, paraphrasing. A non-examined life is not worth living. Shadow work is self-examination, ultimately. And it's about dealing with all of the garbage, all of the negative aspects of self that we don't want to look at. We often just don't want to look at it. Most people, if given the choice to look at the negative aspects of themselves, want to run 1,000,000 miles an hour in the opposite direction. They want nothing to do with saying to themselves, "Why am I the way that I am? What fear factors have led me to be the way that I am? Are my choices my own? Are my likes and preferences my own? Are my behaviors of my own free will choice and doing, or were they programmed into me by people whose name I'll never know, who know infinitely more about my psychology than I ever learned in my entire existence?" This is the point, folks. This is what it's ultimately all about and where it begins. And if you think you do this work and you come out the other side and you still have no flaws, you don't understand what shadow work is. If you think you do this work and you come out the other side and you're never, ever afraid of anything, you don't understand what shadow work is. If you think you do this work and you come out the other side and you're never angry again, you clearly have no idea what shadow work is. And New Agers will tell you all these lies. You'll be perfectly at peace for the rest of your life. You'll never be angry. You'll never have any anxiety over anything. You'll never be afraid of anything. Bullshit. Absolute New Age bullshit and false spiritual teaching. False spiritual teachings. And I can't stress that enough. If you've bought these lies, want to know why? They want you to ignore the negative aspects of what's really going on. Never, ever, ever have any passion about it and just stay a quiet, comfortable slave. That's what the stand down movement called religion and called the New Age movement is ultimately all about. That's their goal and that's their methodology, to keep you quiet, unpassionate, unmotivated, inactive, so that you remain a slave for the rest of your existence. And so does everyone else. And once again, folks, if you think that's what shadow work is, I have very bad news for you. You don't understand what it is at all. You've never obviously done it, truly. You may have done false versions of it, but you've never truly, really, really done it. And truly done it for the right reasons. Not talking about the advancement of your career, not talking about the new car you want or the new home you want to move into. You want to move into a bigger house or a McMansion. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about goals that advance the human condition forward, that perform the great work, that truly, deeply influence other people's mind and their psychology toward justice, to the right in the world. And stop and make it pull back from all the wrongdoings and the wrong deeds of this world, so that we rob the negative and evil of its power and we actually give power to those who are truly doing good in the world. This is what real shadow work is. Real shadow work advances the cause of justice. It advances the understanding of natural law. Long term, ultimately. It improves us by getting rid of the negative psychological fear factors that are holding us back from doing that kind of work. And I shouldn't even say gets rid of completely. It lets you navigate them. It lets you mitigate them. It lets you become more powerful than them, even if they're still there. You transcend them. See, that's what transcendence really means. It means you know that there's a negative, but you're going to power through it. There's a phrase I'm going to keep saying over and over and over again, folks. Willpower cannot be just magically grown. You have to work. You have to practice at it. It's like, is strength just going to be magically gained? You have to work your musculature. Are you going to magically become a good martial artist overnight? No, you have to practice. To overcome the things that are psychologically holding you back, shadow work is a practice. And it means just what you think it means. You're looking at the shadow. You're looking at the negative. You don't ignore the negative. Ignoring the negative ensures that it grows and eventually devours you. See, this is the kind of work I had to do day in and day out before starting What on Earth is Happening back in 2007. I had to ask myself, why am I not speaking out? I'm watching a presenter speak and give a lecture on something I feel is important. Why am I not that individual? Why am I not that individual, but why am I not doing what that individual is doing? Why am I not contributing to educating the public? And I had to ask myself, why am I not doing that? What's holding me back? What's the fear? People say, oh, public speaking is a huge fear. Most people fear death less than public speaking. Meaning, given the choice, they would actually rather die than speak publicly in front of other people. And I think all that just stems from lack of self-examination. What do they think they are missing or not good enough in that says, I'm not qualified to speak in front of others? And this is what shadow work helps you to find out and work through. It doesn't mean those fears are not going to be there at all. It means you're going to power through them. Again, that's the phrase I'm going to keep saying over and over. You have to train and practice to power through your weakness. It doesn't magically go away. And it's the worst thing you could do is just say, that's how I am, or that's who I am. Saying that's how I am or that's who I am does not solve the problem. That ensures more of it. You have to say, I'm going to make an endeavor to improve upon this. That's what shadow work is. It's going to say, I'm going to look at the deep, ugly aspects of myself and ask myself, why am I like this? What made me like this? Is this my optimum self? Is this going to contribute optimally to what I say I want to do? And then how do I conquer that in the sense that I power through it and do the right thing anyway, even if that's still there? It doesn't mean you eradicate it. This is a common misconception. And that's the difference between the Eastern traditions and the Western traditions of spirituality, of true spirituality. The Eastern traditions always teach this ascetic path where, oh, this has to be suppressed and buried and never expressed and, eradicated. No, the Western tradition does not say that. The occultic Western mystery traditions say, work with that shadow side. Become friends with it even. Understand that it is there for a reason. Make it a tool in your arsenal. Take it out only when necessary. Use it to your advantage. There are ways of using negative aspects of the self to your advantage. Integrate it. Power through the parts that are holding you back as a detriment. That's what the goal of shadow work ultimately is. Powering through. That's what real transcendence is. You transcend the condition that was holding you back and acting as a detriment. So I want to give my personal working definition of shadow work because I realized last week that when I gave the first half of this show and talked about practical applications of shadow work and the questions we need to ask, first of all, how it relates to occultism and initiation and stopping the practice of lying to yourself and dreaming about what you think the state of the world is instead of accepting it as it really is and then working from that point forward to change it. We never really defined what shadow work is as a technique, as a set of techniques. This is an arsenal, you could call it. It's a collection of weaponry against the things that are holding us back. Again, the title of the show is Shadow Work, and the subtitle is exposing the psychological fear factors that stop us from beginning. So that is what shadow work does. It exposes those psychological fear factors. It gets us to confront them, understand why they're there and what put them there. Gets us to examine, is this leading to what I say I want? Or am I just lying to myself and saying, this is just how things are, or this is just how I am or who I am? And then we have to ask the question, are those things a lie? Are they not true? Are those programs that are implanted, maybe perhaps all the way from our formative years of development when we were 0 through 6 years of age, 6.5, 7 years of age. And we were told these lies and we believed them and incorporated them into our body computer, the mind, the brain, etc. And then they started firing as synaptic patterns all weaved together in a network, and they become ingrained behaviors. So this is what has to be, we have to define what does shadow work do? What is it and what does it do? What does it help us to accomplish? So let's look at this simple working definition of shadow work. Shadow work is psychological and spiritual improvement techniques which are performed by an individual. We do this unto ourselves. It's not done externally. There's no external power when it comes to shadow work. We could have someone explaining the techniques to us, but ultimately we have to perform the techniques upon ourselves. So they're psychological and spiritual improvement techniques, which are performed by the individual in order to identify, confront, and transmute or transcend specific negative or detrimental aspects of the psyche and personality. Let me read the working definition one more time. Psychological shadow work is a set of psychological and spiritual improvement techniques performed by the individual in order to identify, confront, and transmute specific negative or detrimental aspects of the psyche and personality. And what those negative and detrimental aspects do is they serve to hold us back from our true goals, from what we say we truly want in life. So if you say you want freedom, but you're not contributing to other people's understanding of freedom, how effective are you in helping freedom to grow in the world? You have to honestly ask yourself that question. Then the next question has to become, what's holding you back from performing those tasks? And then you got to go into the self and do the shadow work and examine the psychological fear factors that are holding you back from personal improvement so that you do those things, so that you act in a moral capacity instead of stay silent and therefore stay complicit with the evil that is all around us. And folks, all you got to do is look to an example like people on the One Great Work Network, or look to an example like the organizers of the Funnel Conference and those who spoke at the Funnel Conference. Look at what these individuals did. It's no small feat. I was listening to the roundtable discussion last night from organizers and speakers, and I think almost every one of them attended previous How to Become the True Media seminars. And I was blown away by that, because now we're seeing what they know how to do and what they're doing. I'm thrilled. I can't, it's amazing. This shows it in practical application. And it should be an example. An example is set on, here's how you get out there and do the great work, folks. Think about that. Less than 2 years. Some of the people there less than a year doing this type of work. That's unbelievable. It shows you anybody can do it. And they have full-time jobs, It's not like they're doing this full-time. You can make the time for it. You can make the effort for it. It doesn't matter what else you're doing in your life. You could dedicate a small portion of your time to learning and improving yourself and reaching out and being creative and putting that creative energy forward to educate and uplift others. Anything telling you can't is an excuse and a lie. So I think this establishes, moving forward, a very acceptable working definition for what shadow work really is. And many people will tell you it's there to eradicate those negative things. You notice I didn't say eradicate. I never promised you the negative aspects of psyche and personality would be eradicated or gone for all eternity. They can still be there and even manifest themselves, but it's a matter of, do you let them own you? Do you let them stop you? See, that's what most people are doing in their psychological and spiritual weakness, because they haven't done enough shadow work upon themselves. They are allowing those negative aspects to beat them. They're allowing those negative aspects to hold them back from their true potential, because people don't believe they have a tremendous potential. All you have to do is look at what, was done in the Seed Conference last year, what was done in the Funnel Conference this year, and let that be an example to what you can achieve. And you know what, folks? Once you start doing it, you realize it's not that hard. It's not that hard. There are roadblocks that you have to work toward, overcoming and getting past. And it can be challenging and it could be annoying, but it's doable. It's not something that is impossible. And this is what we tell ourselves. That's impossible for me. That's what they tell themselves. That's impossible for me. Now, sometimes you have to be honest with yourself, right? If you don't have any land to grow food on, you're not going to grow enough food to feed your family, right? Not every person's going to be a gardener that can grow enough food in a very small amount of space with no plantable land to feed multiple people. So of course there are interdependencies. Not everybody's going to be the be all and end all of everything. Okay? We have to pick our battles in that regard, obviously. But most people have the capability of putting their voice out to others. I'd say almost everybody in Western culture does at this point. Almost everyone. Obviously, there's extreme poverty in places, and they simply would not have the ability through technology to do it. But most people in the average, everyday American middle class have this capability already. And what's holding them back is not technological, ignorance. What's holding them back is psychological fear. It's something that they're telling themselves inside. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. That'll never be me. I don't have that kind of courage. I don't want to be a public figure, etc., so forth, so on. Ad infinitum. A billion excuses will manifest. The ego will tell you anything to stop you. It will tell you anything to stop you. So last week, we ended on asking a few questions that have to do with doing shadow work. And here were some of the questions that we asked. In the performance of practical shadow work, one of the first things that you have to ask yourself is, what stories am I telling myself about who I am? My characteristics, my personality, my capabilities, etc., my potential. And then the first question that has to be asked is, are they true? Because shadow work is part of the first step of occult initiation, if it's true occult shadow work and not New Age woo-woo nonsense that the New Age movement wants you to believe is shadow work. If we're doing real occultic shadow work, the first thing we're trying to do is transcend and live up. We're trying to transcend the weaknesses that have led us not to perform the first step of initiation, transcend those so that we can attain the first step of initiation, which is stop lying to yourself. So we have to ask, what lies have we bought about ourselves? What lies have we told ourselves about ourselves? And are those things that we're telling ourselves about ourselves true or not? And if they're not true, we have to stop telling them to ourselves. We have to stop believing in them and letting them hold us back. So this was what we're endeavoring to do through practical application of shadow work when we do it in our lives. And then I'm going to give one example. Again, look, you could look at a billion different examples of shadow work. There's EFT, tapping on meridian lines. There's transcendental meditation. There's rhythmic breathing. There's temperature techniques. And we could explore these, again, ad infinitum forever. There's thousands of shadow work techniques, right? The things that I'm going to talk about are what I find to be the most powerful and effective ones, not knocking any of the other ways that this could be done. But I find that direct confrontation with the self is the most powerful and effective and gets you there the quickest. You could take all these roundabout methods, right? And what they are is more for those who are heavily traumatized, that don't want to do it in the most direct route because they generally say, I'm not strong enough for that. I'm too weak. I've been traumatized too much. And yes, there are many individuals who have to take that route and not knocking it. What I'm saying is most of us haven't undergone unimaginable traumas that don't make a direct method possible. If that does describe you, then use more indirect methods. I don't really care how you get there. You could use whatever methodologies you want. They will all be effective if they're used correctly. But I'm going to use simple, not involving going out and buying anything, not involving going out and doing anything. You could do them right now in your house. Grab a piece of paper and a pen. That's about as complicated as it gets. Okay? Do you have a chair in your home? That's about as complicated as it gets. Okay? Yeah, you could do it laying on a bed, but if you do it on a chair in front of a mirror, it's more effective. Handwriting it down, I find, is even more effective than even putting it in digitally, because we're connecting with a behavior that we're doing. Write it down. We're going to get to the techniques of what you're going to write down. But this is the overarching question that has to be first presented to ourselves. What stories, what bullshit stories have I been telling to myself? Are they really true, or are they just excuses and bullshit stories? And then what am I going to do to confront those bullshit stories that I've been telling myself? Okay? That's real occult shadow work. And that's why most people have probably never heard it described as simply as that. Because they want to make it more complicated to obfuscate what it really is and what it's there to do, to help us to do. You got to ask yourself, what have I told myself about why I can't do something that is required? Again, last week we talked about, why are we talking about requirements? Because we say we want freedom. Well, does freedom just magically come because we snap our fingers and we say we want it? No. There are requirements. Does Earth currently meet the requirements for true freedom? No, it does not. Then we have to discover through knowledge, what are those requirements? And if we say this is truly what we say we want, are we contributing to the attainment through the requirements? It's not that hard, folks. This is actually stupid. It's stupid to have to explain it. Okay? I sit in this chair every week and I'm like, why do I have to explain things that should be this simple and self-evident to people? Then it makes me angry that people have become this conditioned and this dumbed down, that some South Philly punk like me should be sitting here every week speaking to thousands of people about how do you do self-examination so that you stop telling yourselves bullshit. Because humans, like I said last week, are great bullshitters. They love to lie to themselves. We'll lie to ourselves endlessly. If we think it's going to get us out of any kind of short-term suffering or any kind of short-term discomfort, we'll lie to ourselves. And that's never going to get the requirements put into effect for obtaining real freedom. Never going to happen in a billion years. So we have to train ourselves in practice so that we do these shadow work techniques to get us ourselves to be honest with ourselves. Again, the first dictum of all the occult world and every mystery school tradition is stop lying to yourself. Is what you're telling yourself a lie? Then stop telling it to yourself. Stop believing it. And if we really do this shadow work personally, doesn't involve anybody else. No one else has to know. It's private, and you can keep it private if you prefer. I've talked a lot about the shadow work that I had to do to come out of the satanic mindset that I was in and the depression that it led to when I realized what I was involved with. How bad I beat myself up over that. As I've told people many times in the past on the show, I was so depressed I didn't interact with hardly anyone. I was laying in my bedroom day after day playing doom metal, which is droning, sad, depressing form of heavy metal, and just dwelling in beating myself up over my former ignorance and what I had allowed myself to become involved in. That's not really shadow work. That's self-chastisement, self-flagellation. And wasn't really helping, until I really deeply confronted the things that made me get fooled, fall for the satanic nonsense, and ask myself what I believed that wasn't true, and started doing real shadow work. Then I started to come out of that depression. And that's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard work. But to continue to allow it not to begin, you're never going to improve. You're never going to progress. You're never going to make any improvements or progress to get you to assist in the requirements for true freedom to manifest. And again, this is what most people will do. They'll sit there, they'll say, hey, what really needs to be done? And then when they realize how hard that work is to do, because you're confronting the things about yourself that are bullshit that you've been telling yourself and accepting and saying, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. You know, most people want to run 1,000,000 miles away from this type of work. Again, shadow work is not about telling yourself that your wrong behavior or that your excuses for doing so are okay. It's about acknowledging that they're there. That's the confrontation stage. Identify, confront, transmute. If there are 3 stages of shadow work, those are it. Identify the problem. That's how you make a diagnosis, through knowledge. What is there that is a lie that I'm clinging on to? What is the fear factor that I'm clinging on to because I don't want to power through it and transmute it and overcome it by an act of will, by powering through what is holding me back? Confront, direct confrontation with the self. That's one of the most fearful things. Like I said, sitting in front of the mirror is one of the most fearful things anybody could ever imagine. So as we, move forward in the slides, that's why I put this mirror here. Will, who's making the artwork, I found this photo and I asked him, send that to me. I want to use it as a background because that's powerful. The chair in front of the mirror, So what are the practical applications of how do we expose those false stories that we've believed because we've lied to ourselves, right? We have to identify techniques that can help with that. And like I said, one of the biggest techniques is sitting in front of a mirror and then starting to pose those questions to yourself. Have I just told myself a story about myself that isn't true? Here's one. Sit down in front of a mirror. Why haven't I begun the work of publicly telling people what's going on in the world to unlock more minds? What has held me back from doing this? I have a phone. I could point it at myself and then hit publish. If nothing else, if I don't do anything else, everybody in modern middle-class America has a cell phone. They could go like this and point it at their face, say, you know what? This has all been a big psyop through fear. People shouldn't have anything to fear. The only thing that you should be fearful of is, are you in a state of fear and you've allowed them to hold you in it through their mental manipulation? Click, publish. It's on a social media platform. Every person has the ability to do that immediately today. Immediately. As in, stop listening to the podcast, stop listening to the show right now, and hold the camera to your face and hit record and then hit upload. Every person. If we're being honest with ourselves, right? If we're not blowing bullshit up our own rear end, okay? Which is a nasty feedback loop, okay? So you'll get backed up doing that. Not a good idea. Instead, sit in front of the mirror and ask yourself the question, what's holding me back? Is it the bullshit story that you're not smart enough? Bullshit. Absolute lie to the self. 100% absolute lie to the self. Because everybody today knows where the camera app is on their phone. That's about as smart as you have to be. It's fear. So you sit in that mirror and you start being honest with yourself. It's fear. It's not that you're not smart enough. Bullshit. Total excuse. Let's put this center stage. Sorry. Let me step back. Let's put this center stage. Center stage. You're sitting in the chair. You're looking in the mirror. Why haven't I begun the great work? Oh, that's too hard. I'm not smart enough for that. I don't know technology. You have a phone in your pocket. You have a phone on your desk. You have a phone on your table. You have a phone in your hand. If you're not lying to yourself, the answer is you have a cell phone in your home. You know where the camera app is? Yeah, you do. Stop bullshitting yourself. Stop lying to yourself. You know where it is on the phone. Do you know where the record button is? Yeah, you do. Stop bullshitting. Stop lying to yourself. saying that you don't know how to do it. You're a fucking liar. That's all it comes down to, right? You got to say that. You don't need to hear Mark Passio saying this to yourself. You need to say it to yourself. You need to look in the mirror and say that to yourself. So then continue to stop lying to yourself and ask the question, why haven't I done it yet? It isn't because you don't know how. It isn't because you don't have the capability. It isn't because you're not rich enough. You don't have enough money. You're not smart enough. You don't know how the technology works. You're a liar. Liar. Liar to self. Above all else, that which you should not do if you become a true initiate into the occult world. Stop lying to yourself. Tell yourself the truth in the chair, looking at your image back in the mirror. You've been a coward up to this point. Not beating up on you, just being honest. It's fear. And you've let the fear overcome you. You've let it stop you. You've let it stop you from what you know you need to do. You've let it stop you from right action. You've let it stop you from beginning. You could build on that beginning. It's not perfect. It's not going to be high production value. But you know how many people do podcasts like that and have never moved on from doing them like that? People with a lot more subscribers than me, let me tell you. A lot more viewers than I have. Okay? Still do podcasts just like that. Pointing a phone to their face and then hitting upload. And that's all they do. No pre-production, no post-production. It isn't like what on earth is happening. It's a lot easier. And everybody just about who isn't physically completely disabled, or have some type of condition of mental retardation, okay, or isn't in a state of abject extremity of poverty that doesn't even have a cell phone or an internet connection. Yes, maybe you can't do that right now. That would not be lying to yourself. You have a technological roadblock of some sort. So if that's the case, okay, try to overcome that through resources. There are ways. But for just about everybody else, the answer is you're lying to yourself. And the only thing that's holding you back is fear. Fear of what you have to lose. In a worldly capacity. And we're going to go over them. We're going to write them down. And that's what you next need to do. After admitting the truth to yourself, you put this on paper so that you can look at it and then track your progress. It needs to be some type of a physical thing. Put it in a slideshow presentation, a keynote or a PowerPoint document, a Word document, print it out, be able to look at it. I find writing it down works the best with dredging up the subconscious, archetypal energies and making you confront them directly and then transmute them. Writing it has some energetic power to it. So I would suggest writing it down. See, because by writing it, you're writing it. By W-R-I-T-E, write, you are going to R-I-G-H-T, write it. You're going to make it right by writing it on paper. We don't often understand how green language works in these capacities, but this is what it does when it comes to shadow work. You write it through with a pen and paper so you can write it by making it right and doing the moral action in the world. So let's continue looking at this dynamic. And last week I said we're going to start the cons and pros of putting shadow work down on paper. Looking at yourself in that mirror, which is a very uncomfortable process in and of itself. You don't beat up on yourself, but you have to have a firm hand with yourself. So I'm going to try to take my own advice there and tread that line of being harsh, being stern, right? Being strict, but not berating and beating people up mercilessly. There is a balance point that has to be tread there. I'm aware of that, right? So you start with the cons. And I said, this may confuse people, start with the negative. Because when you start with the negative, you're letting all of that out of yourself. You're beginning the process of releasing it by starting with it and putting it center stage first, right? Then what you're going to do is write down the positive side on the right, and you're going to look at how ridiculous your side on the left looks after it's complete when you compare it with the side on the right that are the pros and what could be gained versus your petty things on the left that are all about ego and fear. Okay? And like I said, allegorical movies, I'll keep referencing some. Harry Potter, the whole series, beautiful, wonderful allegory about conquering evil and government and not holding on to that power and wanting to wield it as a weapon, represented by the Elder Wand at the end, which Harry breaks and throws off the cliff. Because no one should wield that kind of power over anyone, as Voldemort sought to do. In this allegorical series of films, one of the teachers, I don't recall his name off the top of my head, he taught Defense Against the Dark Arts in one of the seasons, is teaching the students how to overcome some of their deepest seated psychological fears. And he puts into this magical box their fear, right? He has a representative dynamic, a representative vision of their fear. Let's say they're afraid of clowns, right? When the student opens the box, a huge clown will pop out of the box. And it's the thing that they might fear the most in life. You know, they have some psychological, deeply seated, because of some trauma that happened to them when they were a child of clowns. They don't want to look at them, right? They're very uncomfortable and disturbed and fearful in their presence. But then what do they have to do? They have to confront the fear. They don't run away. They confront it. And they have to hit it with a spell called the ridiculous spell, you know, showing that my fear of this and my allowing it to hold me back from what I know I need to do is ridiculous. It's funny. They transmute it with humor and laughing at it, laughing at the ridiculousness of it. And this is what we have to do, is say, how ridiculous. It's not berating and beating up on yourself, but it's saying, how ridiculous have I been that something that is this achievable and obtainable, I'm not doing because of some ridiculous fear. And then when you look at what other people can do, what everybody goes, oh, look, I'm not Mark Passio. I don't know the things about computing that he knows to be able to do these things. Well, look at what just happened with the funnel conference. Every single one of the people involved would have told you only 2 years ago they didn't know any of those things. They sat in a conference with me over a course of a few months, and they learned. They paid attention, and they learned. Then they did it. They practically applied it. And this involves a little bit of work. You don't have to, they still did their other work in their lives and lived their lives, or they would have starved to death or lost their homes or whatever and not been able to do this conference. So they still did the other things. There was still time to even do those other worldly things. You know, I'm not telling you to be an ascetic and go live out in the desert somewhere. That's not part of the Western mystery traditions. That's not part of what I consider true occultic schools of thought. That's Eastern asceticism, and I want no part of that. You know, so let's start to look at the practical way that we deal with this. We simply use a very real world approach that involves very little technology, pad and paper, pad and pencil, a mirror, a chair. If you can position yourself comfortably on the chair in front of the mirror, that's optimal. And then you start writing down your thoughts on why or why not you have begun the great work. And what I mean by that is telling people the truth of what's really going on in the world, to the best of your understanding. Telling them the truth about objective morality to the best of your understanding. Telling them why certain jobs are immoral inherently and they shouldn't be doing them to the best of your understanding, explaining how morality and freedom are directly interdependent and connected to each other, are inextricable from each other, to the best of your understanding. Why haven't you begun that? Why haven't you put your name on a creative piece of work and published it to the world? I have hundreds of pieces of work with my name on it out there, now immortalized on the IPFS network in the blockchain, right? So for other people not to do it is just unacceptable, because everybody can do it in their own way and help get people to a higher level understanding of what's really going on. So let's move forward and look at some of these practices. I'm going to take this back into windowed mode. And what you're going to do is you're going to write down the cons first. Once again, we want the negative out in the open immediately. Okay, that's the real occult way of doing it, because the right-hand side of this column is going to devastate the left-hand side, as we shall see. So we move forward. And what we're going to see, as I said last week, this is where we left off. The cons are what I call the fear-based psychological factors that stop me from beginning. Again, now we're going to use first person because we're going to say, this is what you're saying to yourself as you write these down. What are the psychological fear factors that stop me? And you don't even have to look at it like that. Just look at it as reasons that I'm stating I haven't started yet. And again, we could list thousands, right? Obviously, we're not going to have time to do that. Okay. So what I did is I have done some of this type of work as social experiments between me and other individuals, simply asking people who have begun, what led you to start? What did you know had to be done, or how it would help that made you see, I got to do this, right? And those will be the pros we talk about later. But I also asked them, what was holding you back before you started? Or for people who haven't started, I said, what do you think's holding you back? What reasons could you give for why you haven't yet begun? And I found that there were 4 major categories on each side, approximately. Obviously, we could identify many more or even other major categories. But there were basically 4 major categories into which every one of these dynamics could be subfiled. So we could have these 4 major categories as folders, right? And then there were other little things, that we could file into the folders as files, as paperwork. But these 4 folders were the dynamics that either prevented people from beginning or propelled them to begin. So we're going to look at each one of these. And the first one that we left off on last week was fears about their personal characteristics or aspects of their psyche. So, and you'll see that these progress from personal issues that are very deeply nested in the subconscious. They're probably the strongest things nested all the way back to the formative years, from the hypnagogic state that we emerge into the world in, up through our first 6.5 to 7 years approximately. And then they progress downward, right? So then they go to things that are more externalized, like not knowing how to do things, or not having the resources to do certain things. But these are the things that are actually the most important up here at the top folder, okay? The top dynamic is the lies we tell ourselves about who we are, right? Those are the things that really stop people. As we build down, yes, the things further down still stop us and hold us back, but we'll find they're actually less of a factor than this one right here. This is the number one. What bullshit stories are we telling ourselves about who we are and what our capabilities are? Because they're not true. They aren't. They're fear-based. Cowardice is holding us in those beliefs because of what we think we have to lose. But ultimately, it's stuff that we've bought about who we are that's a lie. So it is the I'm not blank enough. I don't have this as an inherent quality, right? So do you think that I was always as good of a person as I am now? And I mean capital G, capital P, good person. Was I a good person in the past? I could have looked at myself back in the past and say, I'm not a good enough person. And it would have been true. But if I would have said, I'm incapable of becoming a good person, that's a lie. Did I know how to do the things that I know how to do today, even 3 years ago? I could not have made this show 3 years ago. I learned how to do this. Do you think I was a video production expert? Did I know how to put a motion background and then put borders and put video inside and set it up as a production and stream it to 8 different streaming platforms? No, I did not know how to do that three and a half years ago. I learned. I gained the knowledge and became smarter in that regard, more skilled in that regard. So people will say, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not skilled enough. I'm not motivated enough, etc. But what they're really saying is, I don't have enough of these qualities now. And I'm not telling you it may not be true. Maybe you don't know how to make a presentation and deliver it on a streaming platform today. Does that mean you are incapable of learning how to do that? Now, if you answer yes, you're full of shit. You're a liar to yourself. You are capable of learning how to do it. You just haven't made it a priority enough in your life. You haven't cared enough about what's going on in the world to take enough of the time of your life and dedicate it to that project. That's honesty. You've prioritized other things. But yet you still say you want freedom. Well, don't tell me you want freedom and that's up here on your list if you don't make the priority to do the things necessary to help people to understand real freedom and thus to help it manifest in the world. That if that's way down here on your priority list, you're lying to yourself. So this is the first aspect of shadow work. List the negatives and then look at how you're telling yourself things that aren't really true. You are good enough to begin this work if you understand why it should be done at all. If you understand objective morality, you've begun on the path and you are good enough to begin helping to explain it to others. Now, if you're a moral relativist, maybe it's true. See, you got to be honest, right? Maybe you're not actually a good enough person to do the great work. Maybe you have more internal work to do before you start doing external work. If you're still a moral relativist, that puts you in a satanic mindset. And then you have to ask yourself the question, am I really a good person because I am still a moral relativist? If you think rights come from humanity, maybe you shouldn't do the great work. Maybe you shouldn't speak out. Maybe that does make you not a good enough person. You have to be honest with yourself about these things. If you don't understand your rights are inherent to creation and don't come from human beings, maybe you'll do more harm by speaking out and telling people lies than you would speaking out and telling them the truth. So maybe it's good that you don't begin. So I'm not going to just say every single individual in the world is immediately cut out for the nature of this work. That would also not be true. But there are tons and tons and tons and tons of people who have a firm understanding of this and are sitting back going, let me tune into Mark Passio again, instead of let me make my own show and start telling more people who would have never heard of Mark Passio and won't sit through 30 seconds of his show. You see? Those are the people I'm really speaking to. Like I said, when I get angry and call people immoral for not beginning this and say that, you're a piece of trash or whatever I scream. I'm not saying it to the people who have started doing the great work. If you are someone contributing to the solution, then I'm not talking to you when I get angry and tell people you're part of the problem. You're the problem if you're not speaking out. If you claim to know how this dynamic works and you're not speaking out, you claim to know the wrongs that are going on and taking place in our world and you're not speaking out against them, you're the problem. And shadow work helps you to identify you being part of the problem and get you to disconnect from being part of the problem and get you to connect to being part of the solution. So this is dynamic number one, category, if you will, number one, of all of these negative cons, or what I'd simply call the excuses or the fear factors that hold us back from beginning. So let's move on and look at the next category. And once again, they're the most powerful. I would say that they decrease let me try to quantify this for you, okay? When I did these social experiments, the most people gave me these reasons. Fears about their own personal characteristics and who they are. I got those more than any other answer. And they're the most powerful. So as we go down the list, the reasons or the excuses, right, are less, the ones below, and the ones below are actually less powerful. So all the power is up here. This is the number one thing you got to work past. I'm not blank enough is the number one answer. Number one answer. Okay? Although you do get some of the next few answers, okay, which the next one is, I don't know how to do it. I don't have this skill set. And again, you could look at that as, okay, that's part of being skilled or smart enough, but it's a practical technique or application. They mean literally, they don't have the knowledge of what program is required to make a presentation. And then how do you actually go about bringing graphics and putting text into it and positioning them and then saving it as a presentation and delivering it. They literally don't know how to do those things. And this is what the How to Become the True Media seminar helps to correct. And you don't have to take my seminar. There's a million other seminars in a million different places. There's free online tutorials. You won't be instructed by Mark Passio and my experience of doing these things and little pitfalls that you could avoid, little tricks that I've learned over the years as a person who's deeply ensconced in the field of technology, who has been. But hey, if you want to go somewhere else to learn, be my guest. You don't have to take my seminar. But that's why I give the seminar, so that this excuse cannot be here. Well, I was never good with computers. Bullshit. You've never tried hard enough, right? You have a fear of technology. If you sit down and demystify it and start with the basics, you can learn it. But you didn't do that. That's the problem. So stop lying to yourself. I'm just not good with technology. Wrong. Incorrect. That's a lie. You're lying to yourself and others by saying that. While it may be the actual fact of the matter that right now you are not, it's not true about your inherent characteristics as a being. It is absolutely learnable and achievable if you put a little bit of effort to it. Some people who told this excuse to themselves, who have taken my seminar, have come out the other end of the seminar and have said, it's totally demystified to me now. I understand more about how it works. I may not be an expert, but I'm no longer telling myself the excuse, I'm just not good with technology, because I demystify it for people and I make it far easier than them looking at it with no frame of reference in their mind. And then that creates like a panic, like, oh, I'm scared of this, so I'm going to break something, or I don't know what to do. And we look at it calmly. We take people through every step of the way. and say, here's how this is actually done. And then they go, that's all it is? Yeah. It isn't as hard as you believed in your mind that it was. See, but do you have to put time into it? Yes, you do. Is it an effort? Yes, it is. It's not just no effort and you magically get the skill set. No skill set works like that. You have to pay attention. You have to put the time in. You have to practice. But I'm going to lay the foundation for you, the groundwork. And then in your own time, you repeat it and you learn through the repetition and you get better at it. That's with anything else. You're not going to get every technique that is shown in a martial arts seminar. They show techniques, a lot of them, and quickly. And you have a couple of attempts to try to duplicate it, and you have to take notes or try to really observe and memorize the movement. And then you have to practice when you go home. Maybe try to find videos on it somewhere. Can be difficult for slow instruction. And that's how it works, and you practice with somebody who knows more than you to get better. Well, that's how you overcome this fear, this psychological fear. Find a mentor. Ask somebody that knows more than you to show you. Take my seminar. Don't take my seminar, but go to other seminars or online classes, Absolutely achievable. And if you're telling yourself it's not achievable, you're lying to yourself. So to conquer these fears about, I don't know how to do this, this, or that, you take a very real world practical application. Will it require time? Yes. Will it require patience and perseverance? Yes. Will it require practice? Yes. Not going to lie. But if you don't do those things, will you ever gain that, I know how to do it now? No, you'll stay there in ignorance. And that's what it means to be ignorant. The ways of achieving what you say you want are there, but you're ignoring them. You're not doing them. So, and this works for anything, any skill set in life, right? From cleaning your room to cooking food to being healthier, to learning technology, to learning organizational skills, to learning how to make presentations, to learning, speaking and persuasion techniques, etc. You could go on and on and on about the life skill set. It's going to be the same thing. Stop telling yourself, I just can't do it. Now, of course, not everybody's going to fight like Mike Tyson, right? Not everybody's going to become a martial artist like Bruce Lee. There are people with tremendous inherent talent. But that doesn't mean that you can't do the best of your ability with the skill sets that you currently have and refine them and improve on them to develop new and better skill sets and do even better. It's a matter of stopping lying to yourself and telling yourself that you can't for some excuse or fear-driven reason. And that is what shadow work helps you to do. Confront the reason. Write it down. What do you think you lack? Do you think that's unachievable? Why do you think you can achieve it? What are you telling yourself about yourself? And that goes up to that top one. All of the bottom ones are going to lead upward to the top one. Okay? If you get past that top one, you're 90% there. All right? So let's move on to the third out of 4. So we have fears about our personal characteristics. We have fears about our capabilities, our skill sets. What's underneath that one? This is a big one that holds a lot of people back. Fears about worldly attachments. I'm afraid that if I get involved in this endeavor or in this field, I'm speaking out against powerful interests, I might lose blank. So we went from I'm not blank enough to I don't know how to blank to I'm afraid of losing blank. And a ton of people are stopped by this. A ton of people are in this trap. Because this is one of them that may be true. Once again, I'm telling you not to lie to yourself, so I can't lie to you, right? You may lose relationships with people who will suddenly look at you differently, not understand what you're doing because they're in fear and ignorance, and then your relationship may go south with them. Not uncommon. Might happen. But then was it ever a true relationship? As I've said on this show, and I think maybe I need to revisit it. I don't think it's deeply absorbed enough. When I have conversations with others and I try to flesh out whether they really deeply understand this attachment dynamic when it comes to relationships, I don't get good feedback on it. And I feel like that means I didn't talk enough about it. I didn't hammer it in and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And again, that's what this show needs: repetition. I might need to go back and recover earlier things that I talked about because I don't feel people still have a firm grasp of them. And one of them is what a real relationship means. You could have a billion different types of relationships and hardly any of them might be genuine. A genuine relationship means that there's a connection between each individual and truth, first and foremost. A genuine relationship forms a pyramid where each individual is half of the triangle. Okay? It looks like this. Okay? And each individual is half the triangle. They are at the bottom here and they're making a connection to the other person, but they're both connected individually to truth. Truth is up here at the apex of the pyramid or the triangle. So this is one individual, this is individual two, and they make a connection here on the earth, but their connection is ultimately passed through a connection to truth that they individually have. That's a genuine relationship. Without that connection, if this person's on their own without that connection over here like this, and this person's over here and has a connection to truth, that's not a genuine relationship. Conversely, if both of them are like this and neither has a connection to truth, not a genuine relationship. Only if both are individually, on their own, already have a fundamental one-on-one connection and relationship to truth, then can they form a genuine relationship with others. So, if you did lose certain worldly things like a relationship, a career, which makes you money in a certain way, are you losing anything genuine is the question that has to be asked. See, you might tell yourself this excuse or fear factor, and yes, this one could be true, right? It could not be true in a certain way because the attachment is already illusory, as in the form of a relationship with you and someone who is not truly connected to truth. Or it could be real. You might get fired from your job if you speak out. Doctors are big attachments to this one. People in the so-called healthcare, right? I call it, don't give a damn about health industry, right? They don't care, doesn't care a bit about health industry. That's what we should be calling it, not the healthcare industry, because they don't have true care when it comes to people's health. What they do have true care about is maintaining the Lexus in the family house garage. They care a lot about maintaining that Lexus there, but don't worry about what actually provides care, genuine care to others. If it interferes with my bank account, that's what I care about. So let's start calling it the don't care about health industry, because that's what it really is. And doctors are a huge part of this dynamic. If I speak out about what I know about what the real thing that's going on here with the vaccines, with the alleged, virus, so-called, I might get fired from the active job that I have. And there goes my way of life as far as, how I maintain the things that I currently have and the relationships I currently have. Well, you know what? If you're really a good person, so be it. You have to say, so be it. I'm not going to continue to be complicit with evil just over worldly attachment. You may have to have hardship for a while. And then other people go, how could you be judgmental like that and say that his concerns over feeding his family aren't valid? Very easy. When it affects other people's rights, you are actively involved in the performance of a wrongdoing that you have no right to take. You're not doing something that you have a right to do by putting food on the table for your child or your wife when you're already acting in an immoral capacity by lying or propping up a lie? That's a wrongdoing. That's called deceit. And it doesn't lead to informed decision making. It leads to people staying in fear and making incorrect decisions that lead to the furtherance of tyranny. So don't tell me someone has a right to do those things. Don't tell me I can't be as harsh as I am on cops and military that are violating other people's rights as human beings. Rights as human beings and principles come before anybody making money, dumbass. I'm not going to be soft on somebody and tell you you have a valid point. You don't have any fucking point at all. When you say, oh, how could you tell people possibly lose your career or possibly lose your house? Because you're doing the wrong thing, that's why. And it should be fucking self-evident. For people to say somebody saying that to somebody is too harsh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're making excuses for other people, which is just as bad as making excuses for yourself when you're that much of a dumbass and you don't know how principles work to bring about freedom. So maybe you need to go back to podcast number 1 and fucking learn something. And maybe other people should tell people to do that and learn a thing or two about real principles, because they obviously don't have them. They would have been good little Nazis in Nazi Germany. They would have been telling the Schutzstaffel, the SS, what a fine job you're doing as a German citizen. And they would have been telling people who were telling him, don't serve this evil regime. How dare you say that to him? He has a family and he's got to put food on his table. He's doing a great job as a Schutzstaffel officer. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking morons. Saying that to people who are trying to morally educate and edify others as to how real principles operate and work in their lives. I said I'm not gonna harp on it and be vicious, but look, people who want to tell people they have no right to tell people that, you need to shut your fucking mouth because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about at all. All right? And maybe people who hear this bullshit nonsense in our society need to say to the people, principles are more important. Truth is more important. Rights are more important. Freedom is more important than anybody putting food on their fucking table, loser. If you don't understand that, you're just a rotten scumbag of a piece of trash human being. You're not even a human being. You're just a rotten piece of trash scumbag. And it needs to be said like that. I don't need to make the whole show ravening anger, but it has to be said like that. So, is it true you might lose worldly attachments like this? Yes, it is. Should that matter regarding your decision? No, it should not. You might have to face some hardship. Maybe it's time to face some hardship when we're losing our freedom and tyranny is encroaching from all angles. That's the right thing to do. If you don't have the courage and the willpower and the tenacity to do it and endure whatever hardship may come, then maybe you're just a bad fucking person. That's it. That's what you need to hear. That's the truth. And then maybe it is true. I'm not good enough. If that's one of the reasons you haven't started, maybe you're not good. You got to tell yourself the truth. And if you want to help the dynamic and you want to be good enough to do it, then you got to fucking start doing it no matter what you may lose. See, it was never said since day one of what on earth is happening, this will be perfectly easy and require no sacrifice. Never said it. Can't find me a spot where I ever said it since day one, because I never said it. But I did say the truth would be simple. It's not obfuscated. It's not complex. It is obfuscated in our world. But once we develop the eyes and ears to see and hear it, it's not really hidden. It's out there. It's always out there. It always has been. It always will be. It's just we have too much chatter going on saying, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the skills. I don't know how to do that. I'm afraid of losing this or that. Shadow work. Shut the fuck up. Listen to the voice of truth. Start undoing the lies inside of yourself first. It's not, never was promised would it be easy. It's hard work. That's why it's called shadow work. That's why this is called the one great work. It's not called the easy answer that you're going to get everything you want just because you say you want it. That's not how reality works. And people still can't grasp this. How much damage has been done to them through religion, through government, through media, through mind control, through the New Age movement is one of the worst offenders, telling people that this work is, telling people spirituality is something that it is not. And keeping real spirituality hidden away from them. Oh, special places in hellish torment reserved for people whose souls went down that path of lying, bullshit, New Ageism. I just find that is one of the most detrimental things that has ever been done. I think maybe we need to revisit New Age bullshit again. New Age bullshit revisited again. You know, let's do a presentation on that. Because I still think that's not understood well enough, and it's creeping back into society over and over again, and people buying into it. I see it all the time. So fears about worldly attachments is the third category, okay? And again, approximately in order, this is how many people offer these fear factors or suggestions or excuses, I should say, about why they haven't begun. Let's look at the fourth category. It is fears about not having the necessary resources to begin teaching this type of stuff. So I don't have whatever resources are required. Time. I don't have the time to do it. I'm too busy. I just told you the people that organized and spoke at the funnel conference, they all have full-time jobs. They do this in the time that they find that they can spare and still did a great job. Everybody can make time. You know, you make time to sit and watch any entertainment, you might need to give that up for a while. You know, again, just making the excuse that you don't have the time doesn't mean it's true. You know, you have to force yourself to make the time. I don't have the money. Well, this one could be true. It could not be true. Maybe you spend money on frivolous shit and entertainment, and you could curb that and you could use it for this. Maybe you really don't have the money. Maybe you are destitute or poor, and that's okay. You could do it on a very, very, very cheap budget. There are ways of doing it that way. You know, you could record into your phone, audio only, take the MP3 and upload it to a free service. It exists. It's out there. You know, equipment, like I said, that is a concern. You might need to buy a computer setup that's like $3,000, $4,000. You could probably get away with it for much less as well. You could do it on the cheap for, you know, maybe $1,500. The point is, you may not have the money or the equipment. Everybody's got a black slab. I can almost guarantee that. Is that really the way to do it? No. It's not the right way to do it. Can you do it? Can you muddle through that way? It's possible. You know, if the only production value you're going to have is recording your voice or recording your image and then hitting upload. Can you do it on a phone? Sure. It's not the optimal way of doing it, let's say. I try to teach people a more optimal way of doing these types of things in how to become the true media. So it may be true that that's all you could afford right now. Well, then you save up and you build upon it as you go, but it's still not an excuse for not beginning. None of these things hold water. They're all excuses. No matter how much you want to say one of them may be true or not, they're excuses that we give to ourselves. They're all fear-based. Everyone is based in fear. It's I can't, I don't know how, etc., so forth. I'm not blank enough. All based in fear. All easily, I shouldn't even say the word easily, all definitively capable to be transmuted, transcended, overcome, powered through. None of them make it impossible. Some of them could present stumbling blocks or roadblocks, yes. If you believe that's a reason permanently staying stagnant and not beginning, you're lying to yourself. But you'd have to start somewhere. You have to begin at a specific place where you have this knowledge, you have this capability, you know how to do this. Then you build as you go. You don't stay stagnant in those capabilities. You build on those capabilities so you could do more. Did I know how to create the One Great Work Network when I started my audio podcast back in 2010? No, could not have done it then. Did not have the knowledge. Did I start doing something then? Yes. Did I build upon my skill sets as I progressed? Yes. See, part of it is motivation, the top one. A lot of people haven't developed the willpower and the motivation, and that's important. You have to work on that. That's part of the first part of the great work. Work upon your self-characteristics so that you could then develop motivation and drive and not taking no for an answer. Persistence is part of what we cover in How to Become the True Media. Are you going to try to do something and fail? Oh, yeah. You're going to fail a lot. And you're going to learn from the failures. Do you think I didn't fail over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? How many times do I learn the wrong way of doing something before I finally learn the right way to do it? Thousands of times. And that's the problem. People have been taught, again, I said this last week, most people, the reason they don't begin is they've been taught a couple of things early on in childhood, probably by their parents, but maybe by friends of the family, siblings, who knows. They've been taught, if you failed at doing it, don't try again, you'll just fail again. And that puts that, whatever you want to call it, that negative thought form, that engram, that psychological fear factor in, I shouldn't be persistent. I shouldn't try again and again and again until I get it right. See, I can honestly say, and I didn't have I had a good upbringing, not that my family was conscious and opposed government in all of its forms and understood the inherent immorality of the nature of the system that we are embedded in. But I had a good enough upbringing that people around me didn't tell me, stop, don't try. And they didn't tell me I wouldn't be capable of doing something. And maybe that does have a lot to do with what drives my personality. Because I don't have the thought in my mind almost ever, I can't do this. When I begin something, I immediately from the get-go know that it is possible and it is going to be a proportion or a relationship of how hard I work at it, whether I can make it manifest or not. And this is the real laws of manifestation. You know, you can't believe that I just have to think about something, feel a certain way about it, and then it happens for me. You achieve it by working hard at it, failing possibly over and over again until you eventually get it right, and then it manifests. And I get frustrated. I say to people, every single thing that I do, I have to power through, and it's got to be a war. It's got to be a fucking war. It can't ever be easy. It can't ever be. And, you know, it's because of a lot of other people's incompetence that happens. I'm going to talk a lot about that when I do shows on software and software development. How many problems there are in the tech world that don't need to be there if other people would take pride in their work and their accomplishments and take their time and focus instead of rushing things to market. But money's the big motivational factor, not great accomplishment, right? They don't want to take the time to learn how to do new things because they're only focused on the resources aspect. When if they focus on the principles, the resources will come in return. See? That's why I support developers who I know are doing great things. And developers who aren't doing great things in my mind, I will never support no matter what. You know, I'll choose where I want to put my resources when it comes to what software I will or will not buy. And I'm going to talk a lot about software. I really have to really get into the topic of software when it comes to this because that is one of the most important things. I'm starting to work with some developers actually just as an independent personal project to try to advance some of these ideas and possibly create some good things in the freedom community and for the freedom community. I'm not ready to speak about that in any public capacity because it's just getting underway. But I think more developers have to come into this type of a mindset. That's why I'm going to present something called the satanic mindset of software developers and how they can come out of it, how they can escape the satanic mindset. Because if we have people creating tools for people in the freedom movement, I mean, specifically for that, then look out. Things are going to move forward faster and be easier for people to do. Again, I didn't, have the resources to do something like this. I didn't have the knowledge or the skills, and it's something you build and develop over time. If you're doing the right things in the world, it will come. That's the real law of attraction. I don't ask you to believe me before we move to column number 2. All I ask is that you do it and see if it's true. That's the best way of proving or disproving anything. That's how real science works, as a matter of fact. You publish your results and you get other people to attempt to repeat the processes that you did. Then they can determine for themselves whether it's true or not. That's real science. I've never asked anybody to believe anything. This is a scientific methodology. It always has been and it always will be. You can prove it for yourself. Can and will are two different things. Will you prove it to yourself? The only way you can do that is by doing it. You have to do, not sit and think, not be just an eternal skeptic, not want to criticize. Just do it. And then you'll see whether it holds true, whether if you did the right thing, what you needed came to you. And guess what? Almost every single solitary human being that has ever done those right things in the world has come back and said, what I needed came to me just at the time I needed it, just at the proportions that I needed it. Almost everyone. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and it is more likely than not due to some failure on the part of the person doing it or them doing other shady or immoral things. So, enough of the cons, okay? These are the fear factors that hold us back from beginning. Now let's look at some of the profound truths about why we already know what we have to do. Just like the false choice in the matrix between the blue pill and the red pill. The false choice, which represent allegorically, I see some people, don't even understand what the pill allegory symbolically means. How anybody has not watched the movie The Matrix, it has come to my attention. Some people don't understand this yet in the year 2022, the red pill versus the blue pill, right? Or as I talked about last week, the gold pill versus the black pill. That one, some people might not get the cultural references that came out of the Matrix as a result. But the red pill and blue pill are allegorical symbols, meaning are you going to accept the truth or are you going to continue to accept the lie, the illusion, the bullshit story, which is the blue pill? The red pill represents the truth. Telling yourself the truth, accepting the truth, learning the truth about the world. The blue pill represents, I'm going to stay in fantasy world. I'm going to stay in a delusional state. I'm going to stay in dreamland and not accept the truth. I'm going to believe whatever's comfortable for me to believe. Then the gold pill and black pill are allegories about, are you a doom individual that believes nothing of any of our effort can ever help people? Or do you try? The black pill means you're not even going to get involved because your worldview is too poisoned and you're too in the state of no effort will ever achieve any level of betterment. And I still don't believe that. I flirt with that idea because of how stupid people are still to this day, how ignorant they are and unmotivated they remain. But I don't ultimately believe that that is the nature of the world that we live in. I think that that's a choice. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying anything right now and I'd be black-pilled, right? I urge people to take the gold pill, which is understand that we're in a dark, dreary condition, but with enough effort being the key word, it can be changed But that effort is going to require a colossal amount of work. Okay. And that's what we're going to conclude talking about. Effort. Work. That's what effort is and represents. And we just have to stop lying to ourselves about what we are really doing and make the effort. These cons on the left-hand side of this slide, fear-based excuses. They're not going to contribute to the betterment of the human condition. So let's look at the left side, the pros, which again, I urge people to look at these after you've looked at the negative aspects. Do the negative first, because when you list the pros, right? And you might have different ones. You might have completely different ones than even what I've listed here. Generally, I find that they fit into these 4 categories, right? Even with the pros, you may have completely different reasons for why you know you need to start. To go back to the allegory I was saying, it's an illusion of choice. We already know what we need to do. We know we need to start the great work. We know that the pros are true and the cons are false, fear-based illusions. We already know this, right? So we already know what we have to do. We have to accept the pros here, which are the love-based truths telling me why I should begin doing the great work. We have to accept these truths as inherent, self-evident truths and get to work. And like I said, in your doing this, don't just take my breakdown here, right? These are examples of shadow work results that I acquired through asking people these questions, right? Saying, have you begun in your awareness and in your knowledge, first understanding they have that awareness and knowledge, they know what's going on in general. Have you begun teaching other people? And when they said no, and I asked why, these are reasons they gave. I categorized their reasons. And there are many, many, many others. But these are the main ones, the most frequently answered reasons, excuses, fear-based psychological factors. On the right, it's the same thing. There's many, many, many other answers that we could give for why, and the people have given. When I said, why do you think you should start? These are answers that other people gave. Okay? And then they're hearing, whoa, look at the profound truth that I just said about what's going to happen if I do the great work. And look at comparing it to what I just said about why I'm not doing it. And then I get people to say, do me a favor, just look at what you just wrote down or repeat what you just answered to me. And they go, wow, what a bullshit artist I am. That's what people have said to me. You know, some people stay firm to it. They'll double down, triple down, quadruple down. They're something horrifically traumatic happened that they can't let go of. Right? And they're afraid of losing something, or they're afraid of other attachments that they have. It's all fear-based still, but it might take more self-work first to let go of that trauma. But in the pro column, we're going to build out all the reasons why we already know why we should begin. And again, I found that they break down into 4 general answers that people give. Okay? So here we go. They know that doing the great work is a requirement for freedom. Many people have said that. I know that I should begin because without more people doing this, we're not going to get the job done. We're not going to become free. So they understand intuitively, at an intuitive level of understanding, this is one of the requirements for freedom. Our world needs more voices speaking the truth. My public work will help to awaken others, and in doing so, contribute to the effort to end human slavery. Listen to the profound nature of this set of statements in the right-hand column, which is the paramount reason. This is like equal at, with I'm not blank enough about your personal makeup, the lies we tell ourselves about ourselves. This is the power you can step into. Okay? The great work meaning reaching out to others with this information, is a requirement for human freedom. Our world needs more voices speaking the truth, doing the great work. My public work, and that doesn't mean Mark Passio's, it means yours, the person answering these questions, okay, or filling in these reasons why you should begin or what's stopping you from beginning. My public work will help to awaken other people, and in doing so, contribute to the effort, the trying to end human slavery on earth. There can't be any more profound reason for beginning, because that is the actual purpose that the people of this planet came here for. That's our life goal. That's our life purpose. That's why we manifested here at this time, whether you understand that or not. You didn't manifest here to be a professional boxer or mixed martial art, fighter, right? You didn't manifest here to play a child's game in the Super Bowl, right? You didn't manifest here to throw a ball through a hoop. You manifested here to end human slavery on this planet, whether you know it or not. Whatever happened in your life either put you on that mission and you're doing it, or it took you off that mission and you forgot it in your ancestral memory. And you're not doing it and you're off course, you're off mission. But first of all, just look at everything on the left-hand column and compare it to that one thing. And you should be laughing hysterically about every single thing on the left-hand column if you're being honest with yourself. And here's the big if, capital I, capital F. If you consider yourself a good and just person. Let me say that again unequivocally. If you look at what's already here on the screen right now, all the excuses that can be given for not starting doing the great work on the left-hand column, and then even this first one thing that I've put on the right-hand column for the pros about why we already should know we should be beginning doing the great work and should have already begun, okay? If you don't laugh hilariously at the things on the left as bullshit stories, like, oh my God, I'm a bullshitter to that degree that I'm telling myself this fucking garbage here on the left and laughing at it as, Dudley, not Dudley, the other young hero who's friends with Harry Potter, I can't remember his name, who laughs at Professor Snape in his grandmother's underwear, right? If you're not laughing at this left-hand column already, like Snape standing there in an old grandma's underwear, you don't get it. You don't get ridiculous. You don't get how ridiculous the fears are, okay? And that means you need to do more shadow work. Because I should just put the first answer that people give, and that should be it. Shouldn't need any more. But let's look at some other truth-based and love-based truths, right? Truth-based understandings, love-based truths about why we should all begin doing the great work. As long as we're in a position where, can you organize your thoughts? Can you speak like a normal human being? Okay? You don't have some mental retardation condition physically in actual point of reality, right? I'm not asking all the people who are afflicted with some condition that has slowed them to do the great work, right? I'm not saying that like putting that down. It's a terrible affliction. And I'm saying I wouldn't expect people like that. If you're like your body is so broken that like you're in traction and you're in enormous suffering every day, I get there's going to be people who are in this state. I get it. Most human beings are able-minded and able-bodied in general, right? We could all have little conflicts and things that we have to work out psychologically and bodily. I get it. Almost every human being is in the category where you can speak, you could think pretty much normally, especially if you come to understand this and say that it's true. And your body functions to the extent that you're not so bodily afflicted or afflicted with some birth condition that you physically cannot even pick up a phone and speak into it. Let's be realistic, Most people aren't in those states, those conditions. They're able-minded to the extent that they can speak, and they're able-bodied to the extent that they could do the very basic minimum. Okay? And that's what I'm saying. We don't need to start anywhere beyond that. You start there. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to be the totality of an expert. You start from where you're at and you build upon it. The thing is to get over your fears of starting it. That's what the shadow work will help you to do. So let's strengthen this list here on the right, if it even needs any more strengthening, and look at what some of the other things that could come about as a result of people doing the one great work. My effort will inspire others to become involved. My work may inspire others to speak out, who in turn may awaken more individuals. You might awaken the next person that's going to do things above and beyond what I've done. And it might be your influence that does that. If the person didn't say to me, what are you doing with all your knowledge? You're a living goddamn library of knowledge and you've done nothing with it. What makes you think you have a right to sit on all that knowledge? If that woman wouldn't have done that in the state of Virginia, what on earth is happening may never have manifested. I may still be sitting on my lazy ass and not starting, doing the true one great work. But that person put that thought in my mind so much that I could barely sleep after it was said to me. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing the right thing. I'm sitting on all of this, thinking like that I should just accumulate it just so I know it. What even made me think I had the right to do that? She was absolutely right in what she said. She made me do more shadow work. Laying at night, going through the thoughts of why I'm not doing that was my shadow work for beginning what on earth is happening. So your shadow work doesn't end. You could still identify things that are holding you back in many ways and then work upon them to improve them. Identification, confrontation, and then you work to transmute or transcend. Identification, confrontation, transmutation, transcendence. That's it. That's the steps of shadow work. And it's hard work. You have to look at all the pros and cons, and then you got to realize these things that are holding me back are all fear-based illusions. And it's not benefiting me to stay there. It's a detriment that's holding me back. I don't need this baggage. Is there always going to be some more baggage coming your way? Yeah, sure. But as you do the shadow work, you lighten it. You lighten that load. And again, that's why writing it down helps to make it right. Write it in order to write it. Let's look at number 3. So who knows who you're going to inspire? You could inspire, somebody, like I said, that makes people go, who's Mark Passio? And I'd rather have that. I don't want to be the tip of this spear. I don't want to be the person at the forefront of explaining morality and natural law to human beings. Unfortunately, that's what has happened. I'd rather be a footnote in that equation, in that paragraph, Who knows who you will inspire? First of all, I look at it like, I'm not saying this to brag or anything like that. I helped to inspire the funnel conference. I don't even need to be a part of it, right? I don't even need more work to have to make more presentations for conference. I have enough going on too. Not saying that, if people invite me for stuff that I might take them up on it or might not. I might be too busy. Who knows? Neither here nor there. What I'm saying is I am sort of proud that my work helped to inspire that work. That could go on to become something absolutely incredibly awakening for the world. And it's awesome. Once again, it doesn't require me, my presence. I'm helping to back it, to promote it, etc. Right? To back it by saying, you need to be aware of this. These people are doing great work. Not financially. I'm talking about giving them the encouragement and helping to promote it, to make people aware that that event is taking place. Who knows what that will go on to become? Who knows who might get awakened by speakers from the funnel conference or the seed conference, etc. If what I've put out into the world can help inspire works like that, then that is part of accomplishment. That is part of success, that does not need to involve me at all. Once again, I don't need to be the center stage of any of this. You don't even need to tell people about my work, as long as you're out there telling them about what's going on and objective morality and natural law. Some people will give me credit, some people won't. I don't care either way. It's nice for people to acknowledge. Everybody likes that as a human being that has an ego, right? But not required. You don't want to put them on to me, or you think your way of doing it is much better, but you learned it from me. Wonderful. Go out there and influence others. They don't even need to hear the name Mark Passio. All right. Just wanted to say that. Next. Again, these were all things that people had said to me over the years doing this social experiment. They said, if I consider myself a good person, I know that this is something I have to do. I reworded it here to say it's not even a choice, to keep it consistent with the Matrix allegory. It's a false choice. But what they said is, if I consider myself a good person, I kind of already know this is what I should be doing. That's how many people worded it. And that's true. This should be a no-brainer. Shouldn't even be a choice. To stay silent during tyrannical times is to be complicit with evil. I just let that one bang around in the old noggin for a few hours. To stay silent during tyrannical times is to be complicit with evil. To stay silent during tyrannical times is to be complicit with evil. Sit with that thought in front of the mirror for a while. Everyone who hasn't begun. Everyone who doesn't have any public work of your own. Everyone who could type their name into a search engine in double quotes and get no results back regarding the great work. I'm just saying that's your karmic debt. That's not on me. That one's not on me. That one's on you. So look at what we've built on the right-hand column already. If you don't think it washes away all the stuff on the left like a tidal wave, you probably haven't been paying attention since show number 1, or at least it hasn't sunk in through the ego yet. Then all I can say is your ego and whatever unresolved trauma you have that you won't work through is holding you back, and you don't really understand what has been taught on What on Earth is Happening since episode 1. Maybe you should go back and listen all the way through again from episode 1. Maybe you should sit in front of the mirror more time every day until it sinks in. See, because doing this is what I've been asking for from day one. I've not been asking anybody to listen to me or prop me up as a guru. You can't find the place where it was asked because those words were never spoken from my mouth. All I've been asking for is help in getting the word out by you propagating the ideas. That's it. So let's read this one again because it's very powerful. If I consider myself a good person, and see, that's part of not lying to yourself. Are you a capital G, capital P good person? Well, then part of that involves doing the great work and reaching out to others to help them be aware of what's going on our planet. If you're not doing that, I don't think that anybody can truly consider themselves capital G good. You do a lot of good things, small g, right? The small g. The capital G, the big G, is what I'm talking about here, of being a good person. If I consider myself a good person, doing the one great work isn't even a choice. To stay silent during tyrannical times is to be complicit with evil. The case is strengthened even more in the pro column. Let's look at the fourth and final category. And again, I reworded these a bit from the way people generally spoke them to me or wrote them to me. But again, 4 major categories that everything went in. Why do you know you have to do it, but you haven't? Well, I consider myself a good person, but I haven't spoken out against this evil yet. And so I'm rewording it into this. If I consider myself a good person, this shouldn't even be a choice. To stay silent during tyranny is evil. So people generally worded it to me in so many terms, and I'm writing out a sentence here that encapsulates it, okay, into 4 major categories of prose, of the love-based answers of what we already know we have to do. If for no other reason, it is simply the morally right thing to do. And that came back. I know it's the right thing to do. I know it's the right thing to do. If I consider myself a good person, I have to do it. My efforts may awaken other people, maybe even other very great people who go on to do great things and inspire many, many others and bring this to many, many people in humanity and start to turn the tide on a larger level. And of course, it's a requirement for freedom. If you say you want something and you're not working toward it practically in the real world, do you really want it? Or are you telling yourself a bullshit story? Have you bought into New Ageisms that all I have to do is want it bad enough and it will eventually manifest, which is total New Age bullshit? Freedom has requirements for manifesting. It doesn't just manifest magically. The great work of helping to teach others is part of the is part of the requirements which will manifest freedom. And so doing that work publicly will help other people to awaken, and then you're advancing the effort, you're advancing the cause. And that's what we need, folks. We need people who aren't there to complain, aren't there to point out the flaws of others, aren't there to pick apart minutia, aren't there to act as a divisive element that is there to disrupt and divide. Okay? We need people who are out there to make a genuine effort, not an excuse. See, the column on the right, which is the love-based truths, are all there to tell you, here's the effort that you need to make and why you need to make it. All the things on the left-hand column are the fear-based psychological factors that are excuses. We don't need excuses. There's 1,000,000,001. There's an endless stream, an infinity of excuses. Excuses aren't going to change the state of humanity for the better. Only effort will. And this is why the Rosicrucian dictum is one word: try. Try. If you've made a true effort, and you could say you've really tried with your whole heart, mind, and soul, then that's all that can be expected of you. And I have been trying, not just trying, doing, making that actual effort. I think the least that people can do, even in a supportive capacity of that effort, is add your voice to the choir. Add your voice to those who are speaking the truth, because the voice of the lie is speaking nonstop, constantly. And the voice of the truth is weak at this point, is not strong enough, and cannot overcome the voice of the lie as yet. Not saying that it's impossible, but not with the effort that has been made thus far. Much greater effort needs to be made, and excuses need to be stopped being made. We have to stop making the excuses, and we need to start acting in the true right moral capacity and making an effort to do the great work. So with that being said, that is the conclusion of part 2 of shadow work, exposing the psychological fear factors that stop us from beginning. Right now, what I would like to do is do a couple other housekeeping announcements. Then we're going to go to your calls on the Discord platform. whatonearthishappening.com/Discord or /show will get you into the Discord server. I'm going to just make it a habit. I'm not going to call on people who don't use their actual name. I want a human being's name to call on. I don't care if you consider this, your given birth name as like some slave name or legal name. I don't really care. I want a name to call you on. I'm not going to call you, cinnamon swirl puff boots or whatever the fuck dumb name you want to call yourself. I think it's childish and stupid, dumb handles on the internet. If you want to have a handle, that's one thing, but you're on a private server right now. I'm going to call on people who use their real name from now on the call-ins. So just saying that to let people know why I won't call on certain people. And again, that's part of courage. That's part of just coming out and being who you are. You know, you don't agree with it, I don't give a shit. Go get your own show and do it how you want. Just a reminder that the ARC Drive offer of ARC 2.0, the amazing repository of knowledge, is still available and going strong. I'm actually shipping 6 ARCs out of here tomorrow that arrived over the weekend. Like, very happy that people are taking me up on this offer of a tremendous body of knowledge in the form of 26,000 audio files, over 9,500 books, and over 3,400 videos. This is the information that helped me to awaken and that informs a lot of the work that I do here on What on Earth is Happening. Of course, not everything on the ARC is true. It is an eclectic gathering of material from a huge, wide array of sources by mining the repository of knowledge on our planet called the internet for some of its jewels. And I put it together on a 2 terabyte drive that you send to me. You buy the drive, send it to me. I fill it up and send it back to you. It's pretty much that simple. For more information on the ARC, there are stringent shipping requirements, which are there for twofold reasons. First of all, I'll give you the URL where you can get the document for shipping instructions. whatonearthishappening.com/ARC, or just click the ARC button or the menu item on whatonearthishappening.com. You'll get a PDF after you fill in the form that gives you the shipping instructions, which are rigid. They are rigid, okay? There's a reason for this. I'm not going to get into all of them, but I'm just going to briefly tell you. The reasons that the shipping instructions are this rigid is, one, I've gotten people send things in all kinds of different ways and formats, and then things arrive broken. They either arrive to me broken or busted, or they arrive back to you broken or busted, okay? I don't want your property broken or busted. I want it to come to me in good shape. I want it to leave here in good shape. I want it to get back to you in good shape. Not that hard to understand, right? These shipping instructions help to accomplish that. And when they're followed correctly, nobody's stuff gets fucking broken. Real simple, okay? It's for your property. I respect people's property. Even if you don't, I do. I respect property because I know that all rights are property rights. And property is an extension of the human being. So this is an extension of yourself that you're sending over to me. I fill it up, make it a little bit better, send it back to you. I don't want it busted on the way in either direction. Not hard to understand. And yet still some people don't get it. Number 2, I have to run it like a quickly repeating process, like a factory. I have to. I can't do a million different things for a million different people. It has to be standardized because I'm too fucking busy to do it any other way. If you were communicating with 100 people in a week, you wouldn't want to have to say, this person's going out by FedEx, that's going out DHL, UPS, mail. I need to email him for a label. This person screwed it up and that's broken. I got to get back to them about that broken piece of property. I can't have that. I will get nothing done. Do you understand? It's like me and a couple other people who come here who don't really have a lot of technical skills who help me with physical stuff and some technical stuff. Okay? It's largely me here most of the week myself doing this stuff. I have to make it a streamlined process. I can't do 10,000 different methods for 10,000 different people. It has to be standardized, and it has to be standardized in the way that is easiest for me. For me. Because I'm the one dealing with hundreds. You're not the one dealing with hundreds. You're the one dealing with one. So if you accept my offer for the knowledge on the ARC, you must accept my terms for the offer. And the terms is you just got to fucking pack it the way I tell you to pack it. Because I don't want a million different ways of doing things that lead to a million different problems. The shipping instructions came out of how many ways people did shit that ended up being fucked up and breaking their merchandise or having it be lost. So each thing successively that I learned, this is a problem and they shouldn't do it. I put in the instructions, don't do this. It creates a problem. If you do it this way, there's no problem and it gets to me nice and smooth. Boom, a couple hours, the data's on it. Next day, right to the shipping office. That's how I work with these things. And it has to be standardized. That should be clearly understood up here in the old noggin by anybody going up to the ARC page. So just follow my instructions and make it easy for me. I think it's a very easy thing and it's a very simple, respectful thing that I ask for what I'm providing. I'm done ranting on that. Next, if you want a hard copy of any of my work or t-shirts or keychains or stickers or DVDs, flash drives, the One Great Work collection, which is a collection of all of my work to date, gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. And again, my main method of payment was PayPal. That has been taken away from me. I am now accepting donations. I shouldn't even say payments because you're donating for these items and I'm giving you the gift of the item for you donating to my educational outreach effort here at What on Earth is Happening. You can go to gifts.whatonearthishappening.com to make a donation. And the donation methods are Cash App, GPay, and 5 different cryptocurrencies. I am going to be adding Wise this week. I have now been able to accept donations via Wise. It is an international method of sending donations. And I will be implementing it on Gifts sometime this week. I don't know what day, but I'll take a day and implement the Wise system on Gifts, which is really, it's an indirect method of donation where the cart will just total what you, the items that you want to receive as a gift. And then you can go to Wise and make a donation for that amount. It's basically that simple. So I know some people in, Europe are going to like that I implemented Wise because they're more familiar with it than those of us here in the States, and it'll make international donations a lot easier. So look for that to be implemented on Gifts probably one day this week. And if you want to make a simple, straight donation, there are 11 ways to donate, 11 or 12, something like that. I think it's now 12 because I've implemented Wise in the donation page first. So you can go to whatonearthishappening.com/donate and you can donate by technology donation. I want to thank the people who donated via my Amazon wish list. You've really helped. That has helped tremendously. So thank you to those who have made technology donations for tech that I need here to do this work at What on Earth is Happening. Subscribe Star is iffy. So I'll know whether I'm keeping that or I have to cancel it probably within a week or so. Cash App, GPay, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dash, personal check, personal money order, or technology donation. I may be adding some other cryptos in the future. I've been thinking about adding Theta because if I ever want to move my content to the Theta blockchain-based platform, I'll need Theta to do that. So I may add Theta on Gifts at some point. I may add Solana, which is a crypto that essentially is used for NFT and also has an APY interest attached to it. So it might be a way for, future resources for What on Earth is Happening moving forward. Crypto is going to become increasingly important. I highly recommend that people understand crypto and use it because they're taking away methods of funding at an incredibly rapid pace to anyone who dissents to their worldview and their paradigm and their, narrative. So crypto is a hedge against that. And I think that people should make an effort to understand how it works technologically and begin practically just using it in small ways in their life. And then you'll get better at it. And it will become less fearful to people who don't understand it as a technology. So that's my take on that. And if you are so inclined, you could visit the donate page, whatonearthishappening.com/donate, to make a direct donation to the effort put forward here at What on Earth is Happening. So that's all the slides I have. I'm going to jump over to Discord. So give me a moment. Okay, I have to always put my other headset on to talk to people on Discord in this computer, since I don't wear a headset during the first part of the show. And let's see who's in the call-in room. Let's go to, hopefully everybody is hearing me okay. Check 1, 2. All right. All right. Right off the bat, let's go to one of the main organizers of the Funnel Conference, the Freedom Under Natural Law Conference, Will Keller. Welcome to What on Earth is Happening, my friend. Phenomenal job you guys did at Freedom Under Natural Law Conference.
Oh, it was phenomenal, Mark. It was a full success.
So, Will, you're
streams
unmuted on the server end. If you could just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
I'm not hearing you.
Let me see. Can you hear me now?
I'm seeing that you're speaking, but unfortunately, it's not unmuting. Give me a moment and let me try to troubleshoot this real quick.
Okay.
Well, look, if we can't take calls,
Testing.
I'll do a whole call-in show next week, and probably will do that anyway because we're rapidly running out of time. But just give me a moment, and I will attempt to troubleshoot this real quick. I'm going to quit my Discord app and relaunch it and see if that helps with the audio connection here. Sometimes if it sits idle for a long time, audio stops working properly. I have good hardware connections. Let me come back into the room now. All right, Will, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Still not hearing you. I'm going to go to someone else and see if it's just a problem on Will's end. Let's go to... All right, let's go to Chad. Chad, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Are you there?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm getting nothing.
Dang it.
Volume's all the way up.
Hello? Hello? I think I'm
Check,
unmuted,
1, 2.
but I don't
Check,
know what's
1,
going
2.
on.
Check, check.
Chad, can you hear me? Can you hear me,
Yeah,
Chad?
I can hear you well.
I
Yeah.
can hear you. It's on. I think it's on
Yeah.
Mark's end. He can't hear us.
Yeah. Bummer.
Looks like their voice is coming through on the air, I think. But I'm not hearing it through my headset, so it could be a Discord setting. Give me a moment to correct it. And I did check this, but apparently it did not respect my setting. Give me a second here. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Will, say something again.
Testing, testing.
Yeah, you're coming through over the air, but I can't hear you, which is very odd. That this has never occurred before. So,
Got it.
I'm being told that people can hear the callers, but that's not going to do much good since we can't speak to each other. So it seems to be a problem with my actual headset. So let me try to correct it one more way. You know, this is technical problems constantly, but let's see. Let's give it one more shot. Will, go ahead, say something. Okay, I can hear you. Let's see. Let's see if it's coming out over the air. Say something again. Not going out over the air now. So I've corrected it, but now you're not going out over the air. Give me a moment. You still there?
Yes.
As soon as you go out over the air, I can't hear you. It's very odd. This has never happened before. So I think maybe we have to abandon calls and you just do that next week. So let's see. Hold on.
Cool.
The other thing I could try to do is maybe just reboot this machine and see if it comes back up. Let me try something different. Hold on. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Yeah, I think I found it here. Hold on. All right, say something again.
Testing. 1 2 3.
We have it. I fixed the problem. It was an output problem in a piece of audio routing software that I use to get sound from the computer to go out over NDI. So fixed it, and
Got it.
Now we're good to have a conversation. So
Excellent.
I just want to say the funnel conference was great. I watched it all day yesterday, pretty much beginning to end. And today I watched as I set up for my show. And I think everybody who presented was great, and your organizational efforts were great in the way that you, conducted everything. Couldn't have asked for anything better. I think all presenters also did a great job in explaining natural law and the problems of our world. And that's, to me, the epitome of what the great work is all about. So I want to commend you and everyone else involved.
Thank you very much, Mark. And you are a huge inspiration. The Seed Conference inspired us too. And I'm really proud of all the presenters. You know, some of these guys were and gals were doing presentations for the first time, and there were issues, but everyone just persisted and executed perfectly, and it went off without a hitch. And what you said in your show today about inspiration,
Right.
I see that definitely as the great work. We inspire ourselves to empower ourselves, but we inspire others, and that creates the ripple effect.
Without a doubt. I mean, who knows who was watching that and may be one of the next great teachers of natural law in our world. You know, it's like, that's why we do this, to inspire others to also take action. Taking action is the path through this time of tyranny that we're living in. And that you guys are a perfect example of taking right action in the world. So thank you for hosting that great event and being involved in the technical execution of it and speaking at it. Now, let me ask you this question regarding shadow work, right? What kind of questions did you pose to yourself perhaps before you began doing this type of work? Because how long have you been involved in doing the great work you yourself?
About 7 years.
Okay. And how did you begin? What was the way that you started it?
I started coming into this information pretty hot out the gate with falling into drug addiction. It almost felt like it came out of nowhere, and I had to force myself. It just got so bad I couldn't stand looking at myself in the mirror. And then finally, I made the conscious choice to make that decision to look in the mirror and ask myself the deep questions. Why? How did I get here? Why am I here? And just ask those basic questions and start digging myself out of the hole.
And what would you say you were telling yourself about previous to that point about why you hadn't yet begun? if you want to share that information. I guess just to preface, if any of that is too personal for anybody, just say, I don't really want to share that. But in your own mental dialogue, what were you saying to yourself before you began? What were the types of things that, you might have been saying or rationalizing with yourself that were holding you back from starting?
I would say actually applying it to yourself. And I kind of see this, it's an excuse where that can't affect me, or I'm not like that. And until you find yourself into a bad situation. And that's where I really started digging deep into knowledge and understanding, is from those dark days.
Right.
And that forced me to do shadow work. And from coming out of those dark days, that's when I was really diving in to knowledge of natural law, your work, and getting a deep understanding. And since I already kind of started doing the shadow work, I was applying all information to myself and asking myself, what do I believe? Why am I holding these belief systems, and just kind of knocking them down off the list? And, it's a continual process. Shadow work's lifelong.
That's right.
In my opinion.
Without a doubt. No doubt about that. So that's a pretty good explanation of what got you to begin. How much was technology a factor in, your hesitation before starting doing this? Because I think you mentioned to me before that you did not really want to get involved too much in technology. But when I see what you've been capable of as far as learning, how this works on the technological end, you've handled it splendidly. So can you speak to technological misgivings or, fears regarding doing that? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was on the, I wanted to go homestead in the woods. I was in a fear-based mentality of the world can't change. What can I do about it? And I stayed there for, a couple years until I did more shadow work and made the conscious decision to get on the battlefield. And that has to be through technology. I had a little bit of technology background, but I also, through the shadow work, I gained a deep understanding of my characteristics and my attributes. And when I want to do something and put my mind to it, I focus on it and accomplish it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you did do that shadow work and work through that hesitation that you initially had regarding technology. And because I consider you to be one of the people who are setting examples for others in the doing of the great work. And the whole Natural Freedom Alliance, what you guys have accomplished with this conference is nothing short of amazing. So keep up the great work. Thank you for what all of you guys are doing. I'll probably send a quick note to actually just about everybody involved in the conference later this evening to say what a great job you guys did through Discord. I'll probably do that, and just keep it up. And let me just ask you one more thing.
Sure.
Did the How to Become the True Media seminar help at all with you moving forward in your technological know-how and kind of allay, some of those fears that you initially had regarding it?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I did the How to Be the True Media, that my second year. And I
you're
learned
one of the few people who have taken it both years. So if you could speak to that a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I learned vast amount even the second time around. And in our group for the funnel conference, 4 of us or 3 of us are on the network, and then everyone else, a total of 9 people, they have taken your class. So
That's
your
awesome.
class has inspired them and helped them work through some of the technical issues that they had, or even, starting a keynote presentation and doing the fundamentals. And to me, as far as on my side, the basics and the foundation of tech is where it has to start. File systems, extensions. You got to know your computer and know the operating system.
That's right.
And I learned a vast amount of that even on the second year, which increased my workflow.
Awesome. I just want to also say that I think that the two women who are currently not on the One Great Work Network, Leslie and Vienne, did such a great job that I'm certainly going to invite them onto the network. If maybe you could provide contact information for them, I'd like to send them an official invite to the network, because I think that their presentations were both fantastic. And, we absolutely could always use more women speaking out on these topics. And, I think that they did such a great job that I'd like to extend them that offer.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. I'll definitely send you that contact. That's amazing.
Awesome. Will, thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Will Keller, One Great Work Network, also, one of the conference organizers of the Freedom Under Natural Law Conference, freedomundernaturalllaw.com, Natural Freedom Alliance. Thank you, Will, for your work. Thanks for calling into the show.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you.
You got it, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, see, folks, this also demonstrates one of the main tenets of how to become the true media: persistence. Never give up. Don't accept that, oh, there's just a problem. Yeah, okay, there was another problem in my setup. Okay, here's what happened. I identified it, right? Identify, confront, transcend. Okay? I had to move my headset to the left-hand side of the computer ports on my MacBook Pro, because I moved some networking equipment around, and now I'm plugging my network cable into the other side. So for some reason, the software sees it as a damn different device. Here's the thing. Should changing a port change the recognition of a device? I don't think it should, but some developers see it that way, and it's the same exact hardware, right? But I plugged it in somewhere different, and now it's being not seen as the same device. So when I plug it into Discord and try to get feedback from Discord through the headset, it's saying that's not the same device. Now, whether that's Discord or whether it's my routing software, I don't know, right? I'm not a developer, but this is the problem with software. It's not quite up to par, and it does things that aren't rational, that aren't logical. Should I think I need to set a new output, a different output, when it's the same hardware, right? I'm just plugging it into a different port. It's like taking it out of one USB port, plugging it into a second right next to it USB port. Does that make it register as a different piece of hardware in the operating system? It should not. But unfortunately, developers write things like this. Then I'm thinking, oh, what did I do wrong? I didn't really do anything wrong, but I have to take it out of my setup for routing audio to the other computer and re-add it as a different device because it's on a different port. Stupid, right? Not really an error on my part. It's how someone stupidly programmed something, because they don't think things through all the way. When developers put things together, they make a lot of errors in judgment. They make a lot of mistakes. They do things and don't think them all the way through. And then they want to say it's always user error. No, it's not. A lot of times things just aren't programmed right. And more developers are not in the mindset of the present moment. And therefore, they make more and more mistakes, and it makes people's job who do things like this harder. I'm going to talk a lot about that in coming weeks. For now, that's all the time we have on What on Earth is Happening. Next week, we're going to do an all-call-in show about shadow work, and I'm going to take your suggestions about techniques of shadow work, how to do it, and how to inspire other people to do it, since we didn't have enough time to take all this week. That's coming at you next week on What on Earth is Happening. That's all for this week, folks. Remember, government is slavery. We'll see you right here next week.